A girl standing in front of a beautiful manor. The butler approached and said, "Your Grace, your fiancée, Lady Karina, is here to see you." Duke Milan Pateo, the ruler of Zentor, stopped writing and asked, "What is he?" Then caught himself, realizing Fang had spoken. "Isn't the wedding a year from now?" he asked. Fang, bowing his head, replied, "Yes, Your Grace. But since she's come all this way, I think you should at least go and see her." Milan stood up, his steps brisk as he began walking, his voice sharp with irritation. "Why?" he asked angrily. "How could she be this rude? What in the world is she thinking? Though we're engaged, I can't believe she would barge in here without even informing us ahead of time." Fang walked beside him silently as Milan continued, "And she just had to come now, when winter is around the corner, and I have more important matters to deal with." In his mind, he thought of the looming preparations. We must accumulate enough food to last and prepare to fight against the demonic monsters. Milan stopped in front of a door and, as he opened it, asked, "Is it too late to call off the engagement now?" Karina looked up at him and smiled, saying, "That sounds wonderful." Milan's eyes narrowed as he thought, "TSK. Did she overhear?" He asked aloud, "What did you just say?" "I'm willing to call off the engagement," Karina replied. "In return, I'd like to live here for a period of about 6 to 10 months. Milan asked, "Who?" "Me," Karina said simply. Milan's eyes widened. "Are you out of your mind?" "Not at all," she replied. "I don't need a room in the main building. I'm fine staying in the annex as well." She reached into her robe and produced a paper. "I even brought the document to break off the engagement," she said, handing it to Milan. "Here you go." Milan glanced at the paper, then at her worn and shabby clothes. "Is your family struggling financially?" he asked. Karina tilted her head, confused. "Pardon?" Milan gestured at her attire. "Did you travel like that? Where are the rest of your bags?" I didn't bring anything else in case something happened to me," Karina explained. "How did you come all this way?" he pressed. She recalled her journey in her mind and said, "First, I paid for a carriage ride, then got off and walked for a while. After that, I hitchhiked the rest of the way." "When did you depart?" Milan asked. 2 months ago," she replied calmly. Milan let out a sigh. "You could have sent a message during that time." "No, more importantly, how could you embark on a dangerous journey all by yourself? How naive can you be?" Karina smiled softly. "That's because this may be my first trip as well as my last." She remembered the forests and wildlife she had seen and continued, "I've always wanted to accomplish something with my own strength." In his mind, Milan thought, well, it wouldn't make sense for a noble lady to go on such a reckless journey more than once. "May I please stay here?" Karina asked, her voice hopeful. Milan walked closer to her. "What will you do if I say no?" Karina paused, considering. "Well, I did think of going from place to place and working here and there. That is my plan B." Milan sighed, thinking, what kind of a plan is that? He looked at her, searching for the person he remembered at the engagement ceremony. Is she really the same person I saw before? He recalled their previous encounter in his mind, thinking, I had no idea she was this rash. Karina smiled again. "But I believe you won't say no." "Yes," he asked, puzzled. "What makes you think that?" she replied. "That's because your Grace doesn't like me." She held out the papers. "As you can see, I've already filled out the form to call off our engagement." Milan finally said, "Very well. Come in for now." "Thank you," she said, bowing slightly. "I promise not to be a bother. You won't even know that I'm here. And when I suddenly disappear one day, just think that I've returned home." Closing her eyes, she added softly, "Or you can think that you've been freed from an annoying burden." Milan nodded. "As you wish. Fang, prepare a room for her." Karina thought to herself, and that was how I ended up living in the manor of my fiancé who hated me. Some time earlier, Karina sat at the dining table with her family. The warm light filled the room as her father smiled and said, "Leah, you look very well today." Abelia smiled gently and replied, "It's all thanks to the wonderful medicine that you and Mother bring me every day." Felden frowned and said, "How could you call that wonderful?" It looked awfully bitter. Yuck. Karina's mother closed her eyes and said firmly, "Leah is ill. She needs to eat her medicine to get well, even if it's bitter." Enric leaned forward and said cheerfully, "I also bought you a gift to cheer you up, Leah." Felden pouted. "No fair. What about me?" Enric laughed lightly. "Of course I brought you one too." Abelia smiled. "Thank you, Enric." As Karina watched the scene, she began recalling her childhood. In her thoughts, she narrated, "When I was little, I wondered why I was the only one with dull brown hair in my family." She looked at a family portrait and continued thinking, "We all share the same blood, but I don't look like them at all." She slowly put her spoon back on the table and thought, "Later on, I found out that I inherited my dark hair from one of my grandparents." Standing up, she said aloud, "I'm finished. May I be excused?" Karina's mother nodded. "All right." Karina left the dining hall and quietly closed the door behind her. As she walked down the corridor, she muttered to herself, "They don't even care," but almost immediately, she thought, "It's all right. It doesn't bother me anymore." Her steps faltered. She grabbed the side of a pillar to steady herself, then suddenly began running. She stopped abruptly and vomited everything she had eaten. He didn't say my condition would deteriorate this quickly, she thought. A few days earlier, the doctor had written something down before saying, "I'm sorry to say this, but your organs seem to be functioning at only half of their potential." Karina asked quietly, "Is it that serious?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "It's a miracle you're still walking about. If you suddenly became like this despite being healthy before, I suspect it could be the art disease." Karina froze. "The art disease?" The doctor explained, "Ocarina artists. There are a few gifted individuals who can bring about miracles, and among them are those whose abilities cost them their life force. In that case, I assume you can create miracles as well." With a sad expression, Karina nodded. "Yes." The doctor sighed. "Every time you use your power, your health must have weakened considerably. Why didn't you get a checkup? If you had discovered this illness beforehand, it wouldn't have worsened to this extent." Then he asked, "Didn't your family say anything?" Karina slowly shook her head. In her mind, she thought, "The reason I didn't tell my family is because they wouldn't have listened." She remembered the miracle art she had used and thought, "I guess you could say it was out of pride." Imagining her parents, she continued thinking, "It wasn't that they didn't love me. They always tried to be fair, but my younger siblings needed them more because they were younger and ill. Inevitably, mother and father couldn't be fair all the time. I was neither the firstborn nor the youngest. I was the second child who could look after myself. Naturally, the amount of attention they gave me was smaller than a grain of sand. Asterisk. Her body trembled as another thought crossed her mind. If I tell them now, they'll probably pay more attention to me. But how will I know if they truly care for me? What if they're just interested in my ability? Back in the present, the doctor asked, "You said you're vomiting blood and feeling anemic?" "Yes," Karina replied. The doctor's expression hardened. "That's serious. I'm sorry to say this, but you have a year to live at most." Karina's eyes widened as he continued, "Since you won't be able to eat properly anymore, your body will become weaker. Even 1 year is a stretch." "Is there anything I can do?" Karina asked quietly. "No," the doctor replied. "Not as far as I know. But come back after a while if you still wish to live a little longer. I may come up with something." Later, sitting near a window, Karina watched birds flying freely in the sky. "I wish I had wings too," she thought. "I'm going to die." She clenched her hand tightly. "But before that happens, I want to do everything I've ever wanted to do. I'm not going to force myself to smile. I'm not going to act like I can do everything alone. I'm going to start speaking up for myself." Leaning against the window, she wondered, what will everyone think when they find out about my illness? Imagining her family, she thought, what if they start treating me like an inconvenience? She sighed softly. "I don't think I'll be able to bear it. That's why I can't tell them." Looking outside once more, another thought surfaced. Should I just run away? But I only have a year left. Even if I do, where will I go? What will I do? As she stood up, she thought, I wish there was someone who would look at me for who I am, regardless of whether they like me or not. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. She recalled her engagement day, when Milan had said, "Are you a sheep? You meekly do everything you're told, going this way and that. If you didn't want to come here, you shouldn't have." As she remembered his words, Karina thought, but if I think about it, he didn't reject the engagement either. Then, shall I go to the north? She imagined herself traveling. It'll be a journey I'll embark on with my own 2 feet. Finally, she nodded to herself. All right, but what should I bring with me? While writing on a paper, Karina thought to herself, I should exchange gold for cash beforehand. Make sure to pack comfortable clothes, jerky, water. She paused, realizing, I need to bring the document to call off the engagement. She began writing, her mind racing. I should probably drop by to see that doctor again. Sitting in front of the mirror, she reflected, anyway, I didn't go down to eat breakfast, but no one came to find me. A tinge of sadness crossed her face. I do realize they don't know I'm ill, but I still feel a little sad. She shook her head to shake off the gloomy thoughts and reassured herself, it's all right. I only have a week to get ready, so I need to begin now. Touching her money bag, she thought, I've prepared enough pocket money. Standing in front of the mirror, looking at herself, memories flooded back. Someone approached her and said, "Excuse me." Karina looked up. Yes? What is it? The girl asked, Are you well acquainted with Lord Enric? I saw you talking to him a few moments ago. Karina nodded. Yes, she replied. Internally, she thought, that's because he's my brother. The girls began talking among themselves. Oh, how I envy you. He's quite dashing, isn't he? One said. Count and Tis Leopold are both very admirable people, and their children are all famous, aren't they? The other added. Karina imagined Enric and thought, first, Lord Enric. They say he's well-versed in literary arts, a skilled swordsman, and more than capable of becoming the head of House Leopold at any time. That's right, the girl continued. I also heard that a young noblewoman confessed her love to him through a letter not long ago. Karina then thought of Felden. And Lord Felden, they say he's always surrounded by people because he's full of life. And we mustn't forget Lady Abilia, the girl continued, imagining Abilia. She has beautiful wavy blonde hair flowing down her back and blue eyes that shine like jewels. I saw her the other day and you wouldn't believe how lovely she was. It's no wonder she's the most well-known lady in high society. But she's quite ill. After listening to their conversation, Karina quietly walked away. Yes, that's why the Leopolds are so careful about her health, the first girl said. Come to think of it, there was someone else, the other added. Yes, someone quite plain was always with them. I wonder who she is. Could it be? Where did she go? Karina remembered all of this while standing in front of the mirror. She placed her hand on her cheek and murmured, someone plain. Walking down the hallway, she thought, I remember turning away and going straight back home that day. I wonder what happened afterward. On the stairs, Karina saw Nocturne. He also noticed her. Oh, hello, Lady Karina, he said cheerfully. Karina glared at him for a moment. It's been a while, Nocturne. What brings you here? He replied, Lady Abilia is getting her checkup today. Karina thought of Leah, her younger self. I once had feelings for him, she remembered. Then, thinking of Nocturne and Abilia together, she thought, Nocturne only had eyes for Abilia. Perhaps it's because she reminded him of his little sister who died when she was young. I had no choice but to let my affection for him wither away. Passing by Nocturne, Karina said, I see. I'll be going now. He looked at her, a sudden intuition crossing his eyes. You don't look too well. Are you all right? Karina thought bitterly, since when did you care? Aloud, she said, I guess I didn't get enough sleep. Nocturne added, I could give you a checkup along with Lady Abilia if you'd like. Karina shook her head. That's all right. While they spoke on the stairs, Abilia approached, walking cheerfully toward Karina. She hugged her tightly. "Karina," she exclaimed. Karina stumbled slightly from the unexpected hug, and Nocturne quickly grabbed her to steady her. Karina looked surprised at his gesture while keeping her eyes on Abilia. Nocturne said gently, "It's dangerous to run around here, Leah." "Sorry, Nocturne," Abilia said. "I was just so happy to see Karina." Abilia kept hugging Karina, asking, "Karina, where are you going?" "I'm going out," Karina replied. She grabbed Abilia by the shoulders. "Abilia, you should be more careful. What if you fell down the stairs?" Abilia smiled. "I knew you would catch me." Karina mumbled something under her breath. No one heard, and Nocturne and Abilia both looked confused. Karina waved it off. It's nothing. You should go get your checkup done so you'll get better." She pouted slightly. Abilia said, "But Nocturne always scolds me. Besides, I feel better these days. Can I go outside with you?" Karina pushed her hand away. "Nocturne came all the way here to help you. It wouldn't do to just send him back." Abilia's smile faltered. "But..." Nocturne said kindly, "Leah, I'm sad that you think I only scold you. I'm just doing my job. Since Lady Karina has plans, we should let her go and head upstairs now." "Okay," Abilia said softly, drooping her shoulders. "You're so lucky to be able to go outside every day." Karina clenched her hands tightly, shocked. "What lucky? How could you say that? You have no idea what I had to endure." Karina remembered a time while taking care of Abilia. She thought to herself that Abilia loved clinging to her, so she always had to stay by her side and tend to her. As she recalled the letters and invitations piled with dust on her desk, she thought, all those tea party invitations. I couldn't go. I wished I could attend parties and have fun. I never got a chance to make any friends. That's how it was all the time. While talking to Karina, her mother said, "I'm sorry, Karina. Enric fell off his horse, so I need to go and see him." Karina said with a sad face, "But today is my birthday." As maids tended to her dress, her mother continued, "Your brother could have been seriously injured." Karina asked, "What about father?" Her mother said, "He's already left for the academy. Tell the butler what you'd like for your birthday." Looking at the newborn children, Karina said, "Wow, they're so tiny. Are they my younger siblings?" While lying on her bed, her mother replied, "That's right. Since you're a big sister now, you need to take good care of them." "All right," Karina cheerfully said. Okay, Karina imagined herself walking with her siblings, looking happy. When Abilia coughed, Karina thought, did she cough? And said, "Mother, Abilia." Her mother interrupted Karina, "Go to your room now." Then to the maid, with a worried look, she said, "Call for the doctor immediately." The maid responded, "Yes, my lady." Another time, Karina said, "No, Felden, give it back," while Felden, as a child, grabbed the toy. Karina pulled it from him and said, "Mother made me this for my birthday." Felden fell with a thump and started crying. Startled, Karina looked at him, and her mother burst through the door, shouting angrily, "Goodness, Karina. What in the world are you doing? How could you treat your younger brother like that?" Karina tried to explain, but Felden tried to take her mother interrupted. "He's just a baby. Give it to him," while holding Felden. She continued, "You must be kind to the little ones so they'll follow your footsteps. Just let Felden play with that, my darling boy. Are you all right?" While Karina hugged the toy, her mother said, "Be a good girl, Karina. Do as you're told." "Do you want to be punished by your father?" Karina said, "No." Her mother replied, "Then stop acting like a child." Karina handed the toy to Felden. At another time, Karina said to her mother, "Mother, I feel dizzy," while sewing. Her mother placed a hand on Karina's forehead, saying, "Oh my, you have a fever." Abilia has a fever as well. The doctor is with her now, so I'll send him over to you afterward. She held Karina up, saying, "Let's go to your room for now. I'll carry you there." Karina said, "Okay," smiling happily at her mother. Someone knocked on the door, and the butler said, "My lady, the doctor wishes to talk to you about Lady Abilia." Her mother asked, "Is something wrong?" "All right, tell him I'll be right there." She dropped Karina and said, "I'm sorry, Karina. I'll call a maid for you. Go to your room and get some rest. I'll be there as soon as I'm done." Since you're a big girl now, you'll be able to look after yourself. Yes, Karina asked, can't you carry me to my room, mother? Her mother replied, but you're healthy. She remembered other times when her mother said, you must be understanding of your sister since she's ill. You're such a good girl, Karina. She thought to herself, I had to be a good child if I wanted to receive praise from my parents. While looking at sick Abilia, she thought, Abilia was sicker than I was. Imagining Felden, she thought, Felden was younger than I was. Looking at a picture of Enric, she recalled, he lived far away from home. My parents always seemed to have an excuse for not prioritizing me. That was how she slowly closed her heart and decided not to reach out to them when she turned 10. While drawing, she thought, instead I found a new hobby. Her eyes sparkled yellow as she drew, thinking, I didn't know my creations were miracles then. Looking at a butterfly drawing, she felt fulfilled whenever she filled the paper with her art. Suddenly, the butterfly from her drawing became alive and started flying. Karina looked at it with joy and ran to her parents, saying, Mother, Father, look at this picture I drew. Her mother glanced at the paper and said, Karina won first place at the Academy swordsmanship competition. We suspect he'll grade early. Karina said, Wow, that's fantastic. Her mother joyfully said, That's right. I wonder who he takes after, while her father added, I want to see it too. Showing her drawing, Karina said, Mother, I drew this picture today. Her mother glanced briefly and turned away, saying, Yes, good job. Then she said to her father, Anyway, we must throw a small party when he comes home for the weekend. Karina, standing behind them and looking sad, thought, Abilia is getting better these days too. So many good things are happening. Won't you look my way just once? At another time, Karina's mother spoke while Karina was sitting on a chair drawing, saying, Karina, and Karina replied, Yes, but her mother suddenly shouted, Did you take what was on my desk? And Karina answered, No, yet her mother continued, Don't lie. And then said, Then why is it in Elia's hands? I told you it's dangerous, as Karina looked at her with a blank expression and said, I didn't doke, while Abilia cried beside their mother, who scolded Karina, saying, Why can't you? Be a good big sister. Why must you cause so much trouble? And Karina thought in her mind that her mother did not want to listen to her, yet she still said aloud, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And at another time her father spoke to her, saying, Enric graduation ceremony is tomorrow, so would it be all right if we push back your birthday party? And Karina thought in her mind that compared to In's many talents, which everyone praises, her drawings are nothing, and that it was not like. Having her party a bit later was going to mean there would be less food or presents, and at another time while holding Abilia, Karina's mother said to her, Karina, it's all right to have your tea party another day. Yes, Abilia is not well again. And Karina thought in her mind, of course, since I'm healthier than her, it's okay. And she said, yes, that's fine, I'm perfectly fine. And she tells that the more she said those words, the more she drew. And that was when she realized that her pictures only came to life if she drew sincerely with all her heart. Sometimes she drew for just an hour, and at other times she drew for an entire day. Countless pictures came to life and vanished. And while remembering herself crying, she tells that she loved her creations more than her family, who would not look at her no matter how much she cried for them. And she tells that while remembering her creations, at times they were animals that consoled her when she was upset, or just friends that listened to what she had to say. And that was how she soon reached the point of no return. And while walking away, Karina said, "Then I'll see you later," while thinking in her mind, "I feel like I'm going to throw up." When Abilia shouted while standing on the stairs, Karina, and she said, "Buy me something yummy from the market, I want to try stuff like kebabs too." And Nan said to Abilia, "Leah, be careful." While Karina said, while looking happy, "All right," and Abilia said, "Hurry back." And while walking in the garden, Karina thinks in her mind, "Karina Leopold, you're the worst. How could you get jealous of your own little sister?" And later the doctor asked Karina, "Did you decide that you want to live?" And while smiling, Karina said, "No, I need medicine." And the doctor asked, "Medicine? What kind of medicine?" And she said, "I'm going to leave this place. I've never been in control of my own life. Not even once. I don't want to live like this anymore." And the doctor asked, "So where are you going?" And she replied, "It's a place at the end of the northern region. Have you heard of Zentor?" And while cheerfully smiling, the doctor said, "You might as well dig your own grave now." And he said, "You'd be better off taking a pill that'll kill you in a snap of a finger than going to a place like that." And while walking away from her, he said, "If you're here to ask to be killed, you're at the wrong place. Get out of here." And Karina said, "No, you misunderstand." And she said, "Is there a way to get there safely without dying? I was planning to take 2 months to get there." And while the doctor was thinking, she said, "And rest for a day or two every week at an inn. Would it be impossible?" And while pulling his chair, the doctor asked, "But why go north?" And she said, "I have an acquaintance there." And he said, "But the north is unbelievably freezing. On top of that, winter's only 2 months away." And she said, "I don't think that'll be a problem since I plan on only staying indoors." And with a worried look, the doctor asked, "What are you trying to do exactly?" And while looking at him, Karina thinks in her mind, "He's looking at me as if I'm an ignorant child." And she said, "I would like to get there without dying. That's all I want." And the doctor asked, "When do you plan on leaving?" And she said, "Next week." And while writing something, the doctor said, "There's not much time left. If you have heart disease, there's not a lot I can do about your declining health." And he said, "But I can delay the process. If you stop taking the pills, your condition will get a lot worse, and I'll only prescribe you 2 months worth of them." And after hearing the doctor, Karina cheered up and said, "That's more than enough." And Karina gave money to the doctor, and he said, "That's too much money. This medicine isn't even that expensive." And Karina said, "You're prescribing me 2 months worth of medicine, and I also wanted to give this to you as a sign of thanks. I don't have anywhere to spend this anyway. I'll see you in 6 days, sir." And while looking at her leaving, the doctor thinks in his mind that she is so young and yet so quick to give up, and wonders what kind of life she lived to look so relieved about leaving. And while walking in the bazaar, Karina thinks in her mind, "Once I get the medicine, I'll be all set to go." And while walking in the bazaar, she smells the aroma of kebabs and thinks in her mind, "That smells heavenly." And the stall owner said to Karina, "Don't be shy and give it a try, miss. You'll thank me later." And Karina remembers Abilia in her mind saying, "I want to try stuff like kebabs too." And while smiling, Karina said to the stall owner, "I'll have 2 to go, please." And while sitting in the carriage, Karina looks outside and sees a girl wiping a little girl's face with a handkerchief and remembers Abilia's words in her mind, "You're so lucky to be able to go outside every day." And while looking sad, Karina thinks in her mind, "I know she didn't mean it in a bad way, and I know that she adores me as well, though I don't know why." And while her heart throbs, she thinks in her mind, "I wish I could be more easygoing about things like this." And while coming from the gate and walking, she thinks in her mind that after all, Abilia and Feldon are younger than her, and she should be understanding as their older sister. And she said, "I guess this would be perfect for a light snack before dinner." And Feldon asked Karina, "Where have you been?" And Karina replied, "Hello, Feldon." And while sniffing the bag Karina is holding, Feldon said, "Smells delicious." And he snatched the bag from Karina and said while smiling, "Isn't this too heavy, Karina? I'll carry it for you." And Karina said, "You only offer to help when I have food." And while smiling, she said, "Go and eat it with Abilia. She told me to buy her some." And while running away, Feldon said, "Yahoo, thanks, Karina. Hey, Abilia, look what I've got." And Karina thinks in her mind, "I'm drained, I should take a quick nap." And at night, Karina was sleeping in her bedroom when she heard a voice saying, "Karina Leopold," and she rose up from bed and asked, "What brings you to my room at this hour, father?" Her father angrily said, "Karina, did you buy street food for Abilia?" And Karina replied, "Yes, I went out today," while her mother and Feldon stood behind her father as he continued, "How you know that Abilia should be careful about what she eats, don't you?" And while looking down, Karina thought in her mind that this was what brought them to her room and that she had simply gotten Abilia what she wanted. So she asked, "Did something happen to Abilia?" And her mother said, "There must have been something wrong with the food. She threw up everything to the point of dehydration." And while remembering Abilia vomiting, he said, "How could you be so thoughtless? You're her older sister." As her mother added, "Your father's right, Kina, you're an adult now, you should have been more careful." And Karina tried to speak, saying, "Ba," but her father interrupted her and shouted, "I don't want to hear your excuses," while Feldon said, "Father, mother, Karina just." And Karina talked to herself in her mind telling herself to keep calm because this would end as it always had, and that if she said sorry, they were simply worried about Abilia. Yet she wondered why they were taking it all out on her, and she said to her father, "So what?" which stunned him as he asked, "Huh, what did you just say?" And Karina replied, "What do you want me to do?" while thinking in her mind how much longer she had to endure this. For a year, and while clenching her clothes, she thought whether they would ever know how she felt after her death, as her father said. What an insolent, only for Karina to interrupt him and say, "I simply bought those kebabs for Abilia because she asked me to," and she continued, "And you should have firmly told her that she shouldn't eat such foods because they may be bad for her health." And her father said, "What, how ignorant are you about your sister?" But Karina interrupted again and said, "No, I thought that it'd be all right because Abilia asked me to buy her some." And her mother, shocked, said, "Karina, how could you talk back to your father like that?" While Karina thought in her mind that her head hurt, and she said, "What do you mean I simply told him my opinion? That's all. I don't believe I did anything wrong." And her mother said, But if you were going to buy her food like that, you should have gotten permission from the doctor." To which Karina replied, "What do you mean by food like that? Feldon was fine after he ate it." And she added, "Besides, I bought some after trying one myself, so I thought it'd be all right." And then she said to her father, "I'll be careful from now on, father, and please warn Abilia about this as well," while trying to calm herself. And her father said, "All right, please be more cautious." And as he turned to leave, Feldon asked her mother, "Mother, may I go see Abilia?" And she replied, "Go on." But her father stopped at the door and said, "Karina, you know that your sister has been unwell since the day she was born, don't you?" And Karina said, "Yes." And he continued, "You might feel like this isn't fair, but you're perfectly healthy, so please understand." And Karina replied, "All right," while thinking in her mind that she was sick of hearing about how healthy she was. That Rick and Feldon were perfectly fine as well, and why being born healthy was treated like a sin that demanded sacrifices from her. And Karina's mother said, "Your father must be worked up because Leah passed out. Karina, please be understanding," and then asked, "You're not upset or anything, are you?" And as they were going, Karina said, "Is that all you have to say to me?" making both parents stop as her father asked, "What?" And Karina asked mockingly, "I'm surprised you even knew where my room was, father, mother." And he replied, "Of course we knew." But Karina said, "I thought that both of you had forgotten since you never came here to see me these past few years." And after hearing that, both of them were shocked. And Karina said, "Please tell Aurelia that I'm sorry I caused such an inconvenience. I'm tired, so I'd like to get some rest." And after they left, she lay on her bed thinking in her mind that she hadn't done anything wrong and hoping Abilia was all right. And while worried, she thought that she herself had gone through dehydration a couple of times recently and that it would be all right, not a big deal. And then Karina suddenly stood up, took her colors, and started drawing, creating a little fairy that came to life. And as the fairy flew toward her, Karina said, "Hello there, Miss Fairy," while the little fairy hugged her. And Karina thought in her mind that she should forget everything like she always did because she had her drawings, believing that creating art was the only way she could breathe, that she could not stop drawing even if she had to exchange her life for it, because after all, it was her everything. The next day, a maid asked Karina, "Oh my, are you here to eat in the dining room today, Lady Karina?" And Karina remembered Feldon and Abilia apologizing to her. Feldon said, "Karina, sorry about the other day." While crying, Abilia said, "Karina, I'm sorry, I won't ask you to buy me street food ever again, so will you forgive me and please come to the dining room for our meals too?" And while standing in front of the door, Karina said, "Yes, I will," and the maid said, "That's good to hear. Everyone will be pleased," while Karina thought in her mind, "Today will be my last day here anyway." And while sitting at the dining table, she thought, "I don't think I'll be able to eat anything other than that salad," when her father said, "Ahem, Karina, I noticed that your birthday is in 2 days." And she said, "Yes, that's right," while thinking in her mind, "I forgot that my birthday was coming up." And her father said, "That happens to be Ink's day off, so we thought it'd be nice to go on a Picnic all together. Would it be all right to push back your birthday party? And Karina said, do as you wish. However, I don't think I'll be able to attend the picnic. I have plans. And her father asked, is it so important that you must miss the family event? And while standing up from the dining table, she said, yes, I'm sorry. I hope you all have a lovely time without me. I'm done eating, so I'll excuse myself first. And after that, she dashed back to her room, placed a paper on the table. And while standing in front of the mirror, she thought in her mind, I thought I couldn't be any more disappointed or sad. And while writing on the paper, she thought, this might as well be my last birthday. Father didn't even seem sorry when he asked if my party could be postponed. He acted like I would obviously say yes. It looks like my last memory of this place is going to be horrid too. And after putting on her robe, she got ready to leave. Thinking in her mind that still, since they're family, she wondered whether she should at least say something to them before leaving, but she just ended up leaving a simple letter on her table, and after that she left on her journey to the Zenta region, and while taking a bath, Karina thought in her mind, it's a belief that he didn't kick me out a few minutes ago. Milan said, as you wish, Fong. Prepare a room for her, and he said to her, we'll talk after you get washed up, and Karina nodded to him, while looking at the medicine bottle she thought, I only have 3 pills left, and she closed her eyes, remembering the doctor's words in her mind. I've given you plenty of medicine, but if you end up with only 3 pills left, stop taking them. Once you do, you'll come down with a fever in 3 days. Your health will decline rapidly afterward. It'll be as if all the water pent up behind a dam comes bursting out, and after the bath, while rinsing her hair, Karina thought in her mind, if my calculations are correct, my body temperature will start rising tonight. And she remembered the doctor's words again. If your fever rises to an unbearable level, take a pill once every 2 days. P.S. Don't resist sleep. It's a sign that your body is fighting to stay alive. And while standing, she thought in her mind, is this what it's like to be a grandfather? And while remembering her journey, she thought, the journey was exhausting, but it was tremendously fun as well, though I only have 1 year to live as I wish. And after getting ready, she thought, no, that's more than enough for me. I should do whatever I want. And in order to do that, she remembered something in her mind, and while standing in front of Milan, she thought in her mind, this study smells like paper and ink. I think I kind of understand why he seems so touchy now. And while looking away from him, she thought in her mind, I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy. And Milan said, take a seat first. And Karina said, all right. And both Milan and Karina sat on sofas while the butler poured them tea. And Milan said, now explain why you came all the way to Zentor. And Karina asked him, must I? And Milan said, with a frustrated look, I think I have the right to know, seeing how you're the one who asked me to let you live here for a while. And he asked, did you get into a fight with your family or something? And Karina clenched her clothes and said, I suppose you can say that. And Milan said, considering the fact that you spent 2 whole months just to get here, I understand how desperately you wanted to leave. And while Karina looked down and sad, he asked, was the fight that serious? And Karina thought in her mind, he is partly right. And while imagining her family in her mind, she thought, I just wanted to spend my last days in peace. And in order to do that, I needed to be far away from my family. And she thought in her mind, to be honest, a part of me wished that they would regret how they treated me after I died. I know I'm being childish, but while holding the teacup, she said, everyone needs time to be alone sometimes. And Milan said, yes, but now is not a good time. Winter's the busiest season of the year in Zentor, so I won't be able to tend to your needs. And Karina joyfully said, that sounds great, while looking gloomy. And Milan thought in his mind, what in the world is this tiny lady trying to say? No. More importantly, Karina started babbling. She said, so if you happen to have an annex that you're not using, may I use it? If I were given a room right next to your graces, I imagine that it would be awfully awkward when we run into each other. And while looking at her, Milan thought in his mind, is this really the same lady that I met at the engagement ceremony? She seems rather different now. And he said to her, the annex needs a bit of touching up. And Karina asked, is it dusty? And Milan said, no, it's clean, but it needs to be refurbished, and I have yet to assign servants there. And while putting her cup on the table, she said, "If there's fire and warm water, it's more than enough. I don't even need a maid." And Milan said, "If you say so, it's ready for use, so you may move in whenever you'd like." Fong, "Make preparations," he said, "and don't even think about going outside by yourself." And with a concerning look on his face, he said, "The north is different from the south during the winter. It's dangerous because you never know when a demonic monster could appear." And Karina stood up and said, "Don't worry, I don't plan on venturing out. I'd like to get some rest. May I go to the annex right away?" And Milan said, "Go ahead." While going away, and Karina said to Milan, "Thank you for allowing me to stay here." And Milan said, "I didn't exactly have a choice. It's not like I could kick you out." And while walking, Karina stopped at the door, and while opening the door, she said, "Your Grace, I'm sorry to be an inconvenience." And she left while Milan and Fong were still there, and while walking, Karina collapsed at the side of a wall, thinking in her mind, "I feel a bit dizzy." Karina was sleeping on the bed, and while lying there she thought in her mind, "It's still cold," and while looking at the light she thought, "The light's still on over there." Then she rose up from bed, holding a lantern while walking, and thought in her mind, "I should fetch a kettle and a towel to cool my forehead while I have enough strength to move." And while walking she thought, "Is the kitchen this way? This place is bigger than Leopold Manor, so it's hard to find my way around." And while walking she heard a creepy sound and got spooked. Then she heard the voice of someone walking and a voice saying, "Lady Karina," and she got scared, screamed, and swung the lantern at the person calling her, and the person avoided her swing. Then she glanced at the person, and Milan asked, "What are you doing up so late?" And while taking a sigh of relief she said, "Well, what brings your Grace here at this hour?" And Milan said, while scratching his neck, thinking in his mind, "I can't tell her that I came because I was worried about her." And he said, "I was taking a walk when I remembered the heaters and the annex were broken, so I came to check on them." And Karina said, "Oh, is that so?" And he stepped up to her, extending his hand toward her. And she flinched, and while getting confused he asked, "Lady Karina, are you hiding something from me?" While looking at her worried face, and he said, "If anything is wrong, tell me." And Karina said, "It's nothing," with an angry face. And he thought in his mind, "Nothing." Then he grabbed her hand and started walking, and while walking he thought in his mind, while looking at her, "She's out of breath. Her cheeks are red, and unlike before her voice is shaking." And he said to her, "You have a fever." And Karina said, "It's all right. I'm sure it'll go away if I get enough rest." And he said, "I should have seen this coming. When you told me that it took you 2 months to get here, why didn't you just say you were feeling unwell?" Only a foolish bear would try to endure something like this. And Karina imagined a bear in her mind and asked, "A bear?" And he said, "On the battlefield, it's more troublesome to deal with someone who dies from hiding their wounds. So if you don't want your condition to worsen even more, I need you to tell me about these things beforehand." And he asked, "Do you understand?" With a sorry face, and she said, "I'm sorry," while thinking in her mind, "Wait a minute. Why do I have to be scolded here like this in the middle of the night?" And Karina said, But Milan interrupted her, raising his hand in front of Karina's face and asked, "Lady Karina, how many fingers am I holding up?" And Karina thought in her mind, while her vision of his fingers was blurry, "There's no way he's holding up 6 fingers, and since I'm seeing doubles," she said, 3. And Milan looked at his 2 fingers, thinking in his mind, "Did I get it right?" And Milan said, "You really are such a handful." Then he lifted her up and held her in his arms, and while surprised, Karina said, "I'm fine." And he said, "This isn't a good place for a patient to live in. I'll take you to the main building." And Karina said, and he said, "I know that you don't want to, but I'd be a horrible host if I just let you stay in the annex." And Karina said, "Okay." And Milan started walking while holding her in his arms, saying, "I'll call someone to take care of you. Get some sleep." And while feeling dizzy, Karina said, "No doctors." And Milan asked, "What?" And she said, "Don't call a doctor, no matter what, please." And he said, "All right, just go to sleep, and she said, Your Grace, you promise? And Milan brought her to the main building, and she fell asleep on the bed. And while looking at Karina sleeping, Milan thought, just he first stopped his hand, and then thought in his mind, what is she trying to hide from me? 2 months ago, the maid said to Karina's father, Goodness, your lordship, Lady Karina is nowhere to be found, and he said, Why are you making such a fuss? She frequently goes out on her own, doesn't she? While bowing her head, the maid said, I apologize, my lord. Well, I don't think that's the case this time, and while presenting a letter, the maid said, I found this letter on her table when I was cleaning Lady Karina's room this morning. The letter's content was as follows. I'm going to go on a journey. Karina Leopold, he said, What in the world? While reaching her hand to the letter, and her mother asked, What is it? And after reading it, she asked, Where could she have gone without saying a word? Her father asked the maid, When's the last time you saw her? She said, Well, I believe I saw her go outside 2 days ago. He asked, What about yesterday? She said, Yesterday I don't recall seeing her. He asked, Did any of you see Karina yesterday? Feldon and Abilia looked oblivious, and Abilia said, Since she wasn't in her room, I thought she went to the market again. Feldon said, I haven't seen her recently either. Enric said, Perhaps she was upset that the picnic overlapped with her birthday. I should have picked a different date. While remembering his conversations with Karina in his mind, he said, Karina, if you're upset, you can say so. Don't forget that mother and father love you. Karina said, I know I'm their child, so they probably do love me somewhere deep inside their heart. But one thing is for certain, I'm not their favorite. After putting the letter on the table, her mother wiped her mouth and said, Honestly, how could she be so inconsiderate? Didn't she realize we'd worry once we discovered she was gone? If she hated the picnic so much, she could have said so. Her father said to the butler, She couldn't have gone too far. Dispatch a few of our men and find out where she went. Her mother asked the maid, Did any money go missing? The maid replied, Just 2 gold coins from today and yesterday combined. Your ladyship. Her father said, See, she couldn't have made it too far with so little money. She'll probably be back after 2 weeks or so. I'll make sure to scold her properly when she returns. Her mother said, I hope nothing happens to her. Her father said, What an ungrateful child. This will serve as a good lesson for her when she finally realizes how blessed she was to live in comfort under this roof. After a few days, while standing beside the table, her father shouted, Karina Leopold, what in the world is she thinking? While crumpling the paper, he said, No matter how upset she was, how could she do this? Her mother came and asked, Darling, what's wrong? He said, It seems that Karina went south. She asked, So how is she? While putting his left hand on his face, he said, They lost her when she got on a carriage headed for the capital. And he thought in his mind, I understand that Karina might feel upset, but how could she stir up trouble on purpose? What a disgrace to the family. While sitting, her mother said, Who knows what may happen to her? We must send more people and bring her back. Her father interrupted her mother and said, Bring her back for what? If she hates being here so much, let her be. She left of her own volition, so I refuse to let her into this manor unless she gets on her knees and begs for forgiveness. He called his butler Cassis and said to him, I don't care how much it costs to keep tracking her down, find her. Cassis replied while bowing, Yes, my lord. Her mother said, I know that it was rash of Karina to do something like this, but I can only imagine how dismayed she must have been. Her father said, Stop making excuses for her. She ran away because she was upset about a birthday party. If word gets out about this, I won't be able to hold my head up. She's a smart girl. I'm sure she'll be back before that happens. Her father asked her mother, Hauslia, Isn't she lonely now that Karina's not here? Her mother, with a worried face, said, It seems as though she goes in and out of Karina's room, but she doesn't say much. Still, it must be hard for her. Her father said, She's more mature than her childish sister. Her mother said, Though Abilia acts out sometimes, she's quite thoughtful. I'm sure Karina had her reasons for acting this way too. While imagining Karina in his mind, he said, What in the world could she possibly have been upset about? We gave her enough pocket money and always bought her the things she asked for. Her father said, "We must have spoiled that girl." Her mother thought in her mind, "That's true. We gave her everything a child could ever want." No, let's not talk about this anymore. She'll probably return in a month at least. Karina opened her eyes and blinked. She was lying in bed. Milan asked, "Are you awake?" He was sitting on a chaise while reading a paper. Karina turned her head and looked at him and said, "Your Grace," and she got shocked, thinking in her head, "It really is him." Milan said, "You still have a fever. Stay in bed," and while rising from bed, Karina asked, "Your Grace, what are you doing here?" Milan replied, "Don't you remember? You refused to see a doctor, and it was too late to call for anyone. So I decided to stay by your side until morning while pushing her into the bed." Karina asked, "Really?" He said, "Then why else would I be reading my papers in here instead of my study?" She said, "But am I not a bother to you?" Milan thought in his mind, "Why would she be a bother? She's a patient, so of course I have to take care of her." And he said, "I am the owner of this manor, Lady Karina. Since I accepted your offer, it's all right for you to act like a guest." With a relieving face, Karina said, "Okay." Milan sat on a chair near the bed and asked, "Do you need anything?" "I've never looked after anyone before, so I'm quite new to this." Karina asked, "Really? This is your first time?" He replied, "That's right." She said, "This is a first for me too," while smirking. He thought in his mind, "Of course it is. There's no way a noble lady would ever need to tend to someone who's ill. She's babbling nonsense because of her fever." Karina said, while smiling, "But it is quite nice to have someone nearby when you're sick. I'm used to looking after my siblings." Milan thought in his mind, she must have been referring to being taken care of, not taking care of someone else, and he thought, "Come to think of it, I believe I heard that Count Leopold's youngest daughter is quite sick." While imagining the Leopold family in his mind, he thought, things can be difficult for a family with a patient. For instance, it's inevitable for a parent's attention and affection to tilt in one direction. He said, "Anyway, it seems like your fever is not going down, which is a problem." Karina said, I have medicine in my bag. I forgot to bring it." Milan stood up and said, "I'll go get it." Then Karina grabbed his hand and said, "No, not right now." Milan said, "No, your fever is still high." Karina said, "It doesn't matter." Milan sat back on the chair and said, "You're more stubborn than a donkey." Karina giggled while lying down in bed. She thought in her mind, while holding Milan's hand, "I feel cold and heavy. The room is really dark, but his hand is so warm. It feels so good that I can't help but giggle." Milan said to her, "It's still dawn. You should get some more sleep." Karina asked, "Will you leave if I fall asleep?" Milan squeezed her hand and said, "No, I'm going to stay until Fong wakes up. I'll be right here until you fall asleep, so don't worry." Karina got stunned after hearing him. She thought in her mind, "It feels like I just got an unexpected birthday present." She fell asleep after that. While sitting, Milan looked at her and thought in his mind, "Should I send a letter to her family? No, I suppose it'd be better to do that once winter passes. She probably needs time to sort out whatever she's troubled with. It doesn't seem like she wants to depend on her family, so I don't think helping her out for 3 to 4 months will be a problem." After a while, Milan knocked on the door and asked, "Lady Karina." While covering herself in warm clothing, Karina replied, "Aye, Your Grace." He asked, "Should you be walking around when your fever has just gone down?" Karina cheerfully replied, "I wanted to stretch my legs a bit because I was in bed for so long." Karina thought in her mind, "It has been a week since I collapsed. 2 things have changed since then. The first is that my health deteriorated so much that even walking at a normal pace makes me run out of breath now." Milan walked close to her and put his hand on her forehead. While she was thinking, "The second is that the Duke comes by every day and puts his hand on my forehead to check my condition." He unhappily said, "Your fever's definitely gone down now." But while Karina was blushing and covering her head with her hands, he said, "Why are you acting like a scared rabbit?" While laughing, he said, "Don't worry, I won't bite." "Have you had lunch yet?" Karina replied, "No, not yet." She thought in her mind, "I didn't want to be a bother, so I tried my best to stay out of his sight." But while turning, Milan said, "I haven't either." Would you like to join me? Karina nodded, and he said, all right then. Take your time getting dressed. I'll see you outside, Karina thought in her mind. At first, he seemed like a cold and blunt person, but I soon discovered he was more caring and sensitive than I thought. While walking with Karina, Milan said, that reminds me, I'll be out hunting monsters quite often from now on, so there'll be no need for you to go back to the annex. Just use the main building. Karina asked, would I be a hindrance if I followed you on your hunts? He straightforwardly said, of course. Karina said, I was just joking. Milan said, anyway, do you like to draw? I noticed that your bag was filled with art tools. Karina said, oh yes I do. She thought in her mind, not even my family has ever asked me about that. He said, while pointing outside, then I suggest that you go up to the roof at dawn or sunset to see the view. It's quite the sight, she said. All right, I'll keep that in mind. While turning, he said, but Karina bumped into him. Milan said, oh, my apologies, while rubbing her face. Karina said, no, I'm the one that bumped into you. She asked, but what were you about to say? While scratching his head, he said, since you seem quite frail, be careful when you go up there. She said, all right, he said, also. It gets very cold in the morning and night here in the north, so make sure to dress warmly. She said, okay. He said, you need to notify me or Fong before you go. She said, okay. While pointing upward, he said, and you must come down once every hour or so to warm your body up. While listening to him, Karina thought in her mind, I bet his subordinates don't like him because he lectures so much. He said with a serious face, you better remember all this if you don't want to end up as a dry squid. She said, a dry squid. He asked her while turning, huh? Did you forget what you were like at the engagement ceremony? While remembering the engagement day, he said, you were practically dragged around by your maids. It was clear from your expression that you didn't want to come. If you didn't want to be there that much, you should have said so. While getting sad, she said, and she thought in her mind, I didn't have a choice. While remembering her parents in her mind, she thought, my parents planned the engagement without even asking for my opinion. While remembering Abilia sick, she thought, and they couldn't attend the engagement ceremony because Leo was sick. While bowing her head, she said, I apologize if I had offended you. Milan said, no, there's no need for you to apologize. While closing his eyes, he said, I guess I was also at fault for not asking you how you felt about the engagement. I was too focused on carrying out my predecessor's final wish. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, if you don't like something, while looking her in the eyes, he said, just say that. You don't. Karina thinks in her mind, but I've never been able to express my opinion so openly before. If I had refused to get engaged, Abilia would have been forced to take my place. She doesn't say anything. Milan scratches his head and then turns and starts walking. As he walked, he asked, what kind of foods do you not like? Karina replied, I'm not good with greasy foods. While opening the door, Milan said, I suppose that's understandable. Come, you must be hungry. While amazed, Karina said, Your Grace. Milan said, this place is beautiful when it snows, but the cold is unbearable, so I gathered all the experts of the north and had them make a glass dome here. While excited, Karina asked, when will it snow? Milan replied, since this year's been fairly chilly so far, I suspect it'll start snowing early next month. Karina thought, it wasn't cold enough to snow back at Leopold County though. Milan said, what an absurd comparison. Of course the north is colder. Anyway, the food's getting cold. You should eat. Karina imagined Milan saying to the maids, don't put any greasy food on that side, and she thought, he's so considerate. Milan then asked, you're not that weak, right? You're not going to throw up blood while eating, are you? Feeling pressured, Karina replied, I'm not that ill. She thought in her mind, I feel so sorry that he had to go out of his way for me. I thought he was just a cold and mean person. If any problems arise because of me, he'll have to deal with the consequences. Perhaps I shouldn't have come here. While she was busy in her thoughts, Milan looked towards her and asked, what's wrong? Does it not suit your taste? Karina said, Your Grace. He replied, you can just call me Milan or Lean is fine as well. She said, oh, all right. He asked, So why did you suddenly call out to me? Surprised by his question, Karina shakes her head and then replied, I just felt apologetic. He asked, apologetic for what? She replied, for not notifying you before coming here. I thought you'd say no if I asked beforehand. He replied, of course I would have, he said, but it wouldn't be because I don't like you or find you annoying. It's simply because it'd be dangerous. Forget about what I said to you when you arrived. I'd like to officially apologize for how I acted that day. Karina replied, it's fine, and she wondered, should I tell him about my illness? Even if I do, the situation won't change for the better. In the worst-case scenario, I may no longer be able to stay here. And while smiling, she replied, thank you for this meal. Milan said, that's it. Enjoy. The main chef will be sad if you don't, and I'll have him prepare something easier for you to eat next time. She said, yes, thank you. Milan asked, how is it? She replied while eating, it's delicious. After a few moments, while walking, Karina thought, I haven't been this full in such a long time. Our conversation was lovely as well. Looking through the glass window, she thought, maybe I should go up on the roof tomorrow. Milan shouted, what did I tell you? While furious, he said, did you think I was joking when I warned you about going up there? Karina replied, I'm sorry. Milan said, would you please explain to me why you went up to the roof wearing only a robe over your clothes? I thought you promised me you'd be careful. Averting her eyes, Karina asked, did I? While Milan glares, she admitted, I think I did. Firstly, I must tell Milan or Fong if I plan on going up to the roof. Secondly, I must dress warmly. And thirdly, I must come down every hour or so to warm my body. But she looks into the hallway and thinks, there's no one here. Are they all asleep? While she dashes, she thinks, I don't think I should bother them. I'm just going to take a quick peek, so I suppose it'll be fine if I go alone. She went upstairs and opened the door to the balcony. She was in awe of the scenery and thought, I've got to draw this. While she was drawing just a bit more, someone grabbed her from behind and she got shocked. It was Milan who grabbed her. She said, why, Your Grace? Back to the present, Milan shouted, if you want to turn to ice, just say so. I'll pour ice cubes into your bathtub myself. Karina replied, the thing is, I really had no idea that so much time had passed. I didn't do it on purpose. Looking at her, Milan furiously asked, are you giggling? Karina gasped, and Milan put his hand on Karina's head and said, why don't you just turn into a human furnace? It'll save me money on heating this place up. Karina asked, Your Grace, are you cold? If you are, you can take this blanket. He replied, I don't think you're in a position to ask me that. Karina thinks in her mind, it's been an hour since I've been under these blankets. Milan asked, may I take a look at your drawing? Handing her the drawing, Karina said, of course, it's not that remarkable. But Karina thinks in her mind, Enric became a part of the Imperial Order because of his swordsmanship skills. Felden can do anything he's seen once because he's a quick learner. Abilia is a gifted embroiderer who could make intricate patterns with ease. Compared to what they can do, my drawings are far from being refined. Milan looks at the drawing thoroughly and said, whenever I hear you speak, I come to the conclusion that being too humble isn't good either. While confused, Karina asked, what? Looking at the drawing, Milan said, I'm not that knowledgeable in this area, so I can't give you an accurate evaluation, but this is incredible. Karina gets surprised by his remark and blushed. Milan continued, I never thought the view from the top of my manor could be this beautiful. Lady Karina, you should have more confidence. She replied, that's the first time I've received such a compliment. He said, well, I'm dead serious. I can't wait to see the final version. She replied, thank you for being so generous. He said, generous? I meant what I said. I don't joke about things like this. If I really thought your drawing was horrible, I would have suggested that you find a different hobby. Karina laughs and said, I suppose you're right. Milan said, if you still have trouble believing me, why don't you give me the finished version once you're done? I'll request an evaluation from an acquaintance of mine who's well-versed in art. Karina replied, I will, but as for the evaluation, I don't think it'll be necessary. I don't draw to show other people, you see. She thinks I only started art because I was lonely and ended up continuing, but I'm too embarrassed to say so. She asked, Your Grace, "Can I take off these blankets now?" While they were talking, someone knocks on the door and said, "Your Grace, it's Marius." Milan said, "Come in." He came in and asked, "Your Grace, did you turn this lady into a blanket caterpillar?" Milan said, "I didn't summon you to hear such nonsense." Marius said, "It seems as though the long journey here has weakened her health. On top of that, she spent a whole day sitting outside on the roof. Give her a checkup." Milan said, "Ah, I see." He said, "Lady Karina, let me take." As he reached out his hand to check on Karina, she hides her head inside the blanket. Surprised by her gesture, the doctor said, "Your Grace." While surprised, Milan asked, "Lady Karina, what are you doing?" She mumbles from inside the blanket, "I told you I didn't want to see a doctor." Milan said, "Well, then you shouldn't have fallen ill." "Let him take a look at you." She replied, "I'll get better once I get plenty of rest." Milan said, "I see. I'm not getting anywhere." He lifts her up as he was folding the blanket and said, "Come, let's get you to bed." Shocked by his action, Marius shouted, "Your Grace, how could you pick up a lady like that? If you're going to move her, you should carry her gently in your arms." Milan puts Karina on the bed, and she was also shocked. Milan said, "I did carry her gently." While crying, Marius said, "How is that being gentle? She's not a sack of potatoes." "Your Grace, you shouldn't treat a southerner like you would a northerner. They're not accustomed to our rough ways." Scratching his head, Milan said, "Is that so?" "I apologize, Lady Karina." Marius then said, "My lady, please forgive his Grace. And would you be so kind as to give me your hand?" He checks up on her as she was breathing heavily. Milan said, "How is?" Marius cuts him off by pointing with his finger, "SH," then said to Karina, "If you're tired, get some sleep, my lady." She lay down comfortably, and as she was lying down, Karina thinks, I shouldn't fall asleep." Marius then examines her with a serious expression. Milan asked, "What's the matter? Why do you look so serious?" He replied, "She seems severely ill. Her pulse is unstable and weak, as is her heartbeat. She also has a light spot on her skin." After examining her, Marius said, "This illness is rare in the north, but it looks like she has art disease." Milan asked, "Art disease?" He told, "Yes. As you know, the iOS Empire was blessed with art. The north is filled with soldiers because it was recently occupied, but the capital and the south have always been bustling with marvelous artists." Milan replied, "I'm aware of that." So Marius continued, "Though it's rare. There are some cases where a few artists are overly blessed with the gift of art. They are able to bring about miracles with their creations. Such miracles surpass human capabilities and are even called the power of a deity." Milan, remembering in his mind, said, "Come to think of it, Fiel's performances have the power to heal." Marius said, "That's right. House Carlos is famous for being a family of artists for generations in the empire." Then Milan asked, "So you're saying that this squid, Lady Karina, is an artist that has the ability to bring about miracles?" Marius told him, "Yes. This light spot that begins here under her armpit and continues to the inner part of her arm is one of the symptoms." Milan thinks in his mind, "Her drawing was enough to impress me, who doesn't know a thing about art. I even got goosebumps." The sketch depicted a familiar sight, and yet it was far more beautiful than anything I'd seen before. Looking at it made me feel as if I was right there on the rooftop, staring at the view with my very eyes. Scratching his head, Marius replied, "Well, she's quite weak right now, but with my skills, I don't think I'll be able to figure out what type of art disease she has." Milan asked, "Type?" Marius told him, "There are several different types of art disease. The mildest type brings about a decrease in the person's stamina, while another causes the loss of sensation in limbs, and though it is rare, there are also cases where the disease takes away one's life." Milan said, "So what you're saying is, in the worst case, Lady Karina may die?" Marius replied, "Those cases are very rare, but to put it bluntly, yes." Milan said, "That sounds like a rather cruel blessing." Marius said, "Well, we are talking about a power that transcends human boundaries." Milan looks towards her and thinks, "Since she's sleeping right now, I can't ask her anything." He asked, "Is there a way to cure her illness?" Marius replied, "As far as I know, there isn't. All I can do is prescribe painkillers for her. Milan asked, so does that mean I can do nothing but watch as she loses a limb or her life? Marius replied, if the artist really wants to live, then they must stop creating art. However, most do not. Milan said, why not? How hard could it be to choose life over art? Marius explained, Your Grace, if you were ever put in a situation where you would die or lose a limb if you continued wielding a sword, would you be able to swiftly decide never to touch it again? Milan then apologized. I'm sorry, that was thoughtless of me. Marius told him, those who have this disease are usually great masters of their field. It wouldn't be hard to imagine how much they love and treasure art. Milan recalled, she never mentioned this during the engagement ceremony. Marius added, they probably dedicated most of their lives to creating art. Milan then said, thank you. I'll send a message to Fiel. As he was leaving, Marius said, since she's quite weak right now, please keep an eye on her. I'll leave some medicine that will reduce her fever. As he closes the door, Milan said, all right. After he left, Milan wondered, how long has she suffered on her own at night? While smoking, Milan thinks she had a long face that time too. He recalled the day of his engagement and tells, on the day of the engagement ceremony, she looked at the spot where only her brother sat with such a sad expression on her face. But whenever someone came up to greet us, I was flabbergasted at how she would flash a smile at them like nothing happened. As he puts her drawing in a tube, he tells, I couldn't help but blurt out that she reminded me of a sheep back then. I thought she'd get mad at me, but she only smiled like a fool. Then standing on the balcony, he whistles and a falcon came and sits on his hand. The falcon rubs its head on Milan's face and then flies away. Looking at the falcon going, Milan thinks in his mind, I hope Fiel sends me a reply before it starts snowing. Meanwhile, None asked the doctor, Sir, are you serious? Are you really going to the north? The doctor replied, as he was preparing to leave, I'll leave the clinic in your hands for a while. I'll be back next spring if things end quickly. Nocturne said, but the north is dangerous in the winter. The doctor said, it'll be fine. I'll be cutting it close, but I'll probably get there before winter starts. While worried, None said, I'm pretty sure it will begin during your journey. But why are you going to the north anyway? Rummaging through his things, the doctor replied, a month ago, a young lady with art disease came by to see me. She didn't have very long left to live. She told me that she was heading north. I got a little worried about her, so I decided to go there as well. The north probably has very few doctors who know about art disease. Noct asked, but if she doesn't have long to live, doesn't that mean she has the worst kind of art disease? As he puts on his hat, the doctor said, well, it was my first time seeing such a type in my whole career as a doctor. I imagine it'll probably be too late to help her. Nocturne then asked, then why are you going there? As he was about to sit, he said, it seemed like she was from a wealthy family, but judging by how much her illness had progressed, it's clear that her parents didn't care about her very much. If they had paid a bit of attention to her, her condition wouldn't have worsened to this extent. None replied, some parents abandon their own children, leaving them to die on the streets. So it wouldn't surprise me if such cold-hearted and neglectful parents existed. Either sitting inside the carriage, the doctor advised, anyhow, Nocturne, make sure to treat all your patients fairly. If I hear strange rumors about the clinic while I'm away, mind you, I'll be very angry. None smiles and said, all right, don't worry. I'll run things as you would, sir, he asked, but what was the name of your patient? The doctor replied, as he thinks, what was it again? Lena or something. I don't remember. Well, I'll be heading off now. Noct then said, yes, sir. I hope you have a safe journey. As the carriage was leaving, Nocturne looks at it and thinks Lena. Could it be House Leopold's? No, Lena is a common name. On top of that, she didn't have long left to live. It couldn't be her at the Leopold household. Frick asked, did we get any news about Karina? It's been a month since she left. His father replied, all I received was a report saying that they were still searching for her in the capital. Enric said, Father, I think it would be better to make use of the soldiers. As he puts down his pen, his father said, if she has already gone beyond the capital, then it would be unreasonable to send soldiers. It could complicate things if the imperial family were to misunderstand, showing disapproval. He said, "Who did she get her stubbornness from?" And Rick said, "I'm getting worried. I hope nothing has happened to her." His father looks at the portraits of his family members that were on his desk. He picks up Abilia's portrait and wonders, did I not have Karina's portrait made? After a few moments, while walking in the hallway, her father remembers these words, "I'm surprised you even knew where my room was." "Father, Mother, I thought that both of you had forgotten since you never came here to see me these past few years." He stops and looks at the rooms and tells himself, "We gave Abilia the room closest to the stairs so it would be easier for the doctor to find her. And since Rick has to go to work every day, we gave him the room next to hers. We gave Feldon the next room because he's younger, and Karina's room." He looks towards where Karina's room was, at the end, in the dark. While walking towards her room, he recalls, did she say something back then? He remembers Karina saying in his mind, "Father, I want a room over there as well." This one is too far from the stairs, so it's scary. He tells himself, I scolded her, telling her not to be so childish, because she was a big sister. But now I see that this room could have been frightening for a child her age to stay in. Standing at the door, he recalls, I remember going to Karina's room to reprimand her when she gave Leo street food. Other than that, I don't remember the last time I came here to see her. He went inside the room and, looking at the table, he observes, this table is a bit too small for an adult. If she needed a bigger one, she should have said so. He pulls out the drawer and picks up the drawings that were inside. He looks at a painting and said, was it 2 years ago? Ilya's condition got worse, so we went on an outing to get some fresh air. Did Karina not go with us then? As he was reminiscing, the door opens and his wife comes in and calls, Cassis, what are you doing in here? He replied, I was just dropping by. What about you? She said. Seeing Karina's empty seat in the dining room made me think of her, but I haven't been to Karina's room in a while, so this feels strange. Looking at the painting he's holding, she asked, what's that? He replied, I think it's one of Karina's drawings. His wife also looks at the painting and said, it's been some time since I saw her drawing. He asked, did she draw before? She tells him, she used to bring her illustrations to show me from time to time when she was little, but she stopped after a while, so I thought she had gotten tired of it. She said, I wonder how she's doing. Her father said, she's a bright girl, so she's probably doing fine. I'll send a few messages to nobles that are close to our family. Her mother wonders, she's always been such a good and obedient girl. Why did she do this? She told, Leah keeps asking me when Karina will be back, and Feldon says he wants to go look for her. I'm getting worried day by day. Her father said, since Karina's not here, take good care of Leah. Her condition will get worse if she has any trouble sleeping. Her mother said, why don't you try sending a message to the Duke? Her father replied, Duke Pastello? No, I doubt she went to Zuntor. Shaking his head, he said, the road to the north is very dangerous. She couldn't have gone all the way there with what little money she took with her. She's timid and doesn't have the courage to do something like that. She's probably hiding somewhere in the capital. I'll take care of everything, so don't worry. I'll also make sure to ask friends who live near the capital. Her mother thinks, why do I feel frighteningly lonely when I look at this drawing? Meanwhile, Noan asked, why the long face, Leah? She replied, did it show? I was just thinking of Karina. It's been 2 months since she ran away. Nocturne remembers, Karina Leopold. She was a quiet lady who never stood out. It was easy to overlook her because she had doe brown hair, unlike the rest of her family, but her blue eyes were strangely more beautiful than anyone else's. Abilia said, you know, Karina always stayed by my side whenever I was sick. That's why I never felt lonely, even though I didn't have any friends. While smiling, she told, she would read me a picture book whenever I asked her to, and even sang me a lullaby when I requested it. Hearing her, Nocturne replied, I see. Abilia continued, and if I told her that I was lonely, she didn't go out to meet her friends and stayed right next to me. While giggling, she told him, actually, when I was younger, I was jealous that she got to go out when I couldn't, so I made her stay with me a couple of times. But I don't do that anymore. Nocturne smiles and said, Lady Karina must have been a kind sister. He concludes in his mind, though she may not have liked you as much as you think she did. He then remembers a past incident. Abilia said, I knew you would catch me. Karina said, don't trust me. The words she mumbled at the staircase sounded so sincere that he thought her kindness to Abilia was all an act, and even if she doesn't like Abilia that much, she should have at least sent her sick sister a letter. Nocturne said, don't be too anxious. But if you're really worried, how about you get healthier so you can go and look for her? While rummaging through her things, Abilia said, that sounds good too. Oh, and I also found out something amazing about Karina the other day. Showing him a picture, she said, Tata, look at this. Noct asked, a drawing. Looking at the drawing, he thinks, it feels like I'm staring at the scene with my very eyes. It feels so real. Amazed by the drawing, he asked, did Lady Karina really draw this? In disagreement, she said, yes. I took it from her room. I have no idea why she didn't say anything about her drawings. When she's this talented, if I were her, I would have run to Mother and asked her to compliment me. Karina is really good at doing things by herself. As she was talking, Nocturne stands up. Abilia asked, are you leaving already? He replied, yes, I just remembered that I had something to take care of. She said, oh, all right. Goodbye. Nocturne left the room. After closing the door, he puts his hand inside his bag and thinks, could it be? He pulls out a prescription, which contents were, name, Karina, condition, suspected of having heart disease, has 1 year left to live at most. Note, slim chance of living longer. He said to himself, no way. Back at the Duke's manor, Karina opens her eyes and she was lying on the bed. She rises up from bed and thinks, I'm thirsty. She extends her hand to reach the jug and wonders, did His Grace leave this for me? She said to herself, I shouldn't have come here. She thinks in her mind, I wonder if he found out about my illness. She said, I hope that he never finds out. When she was told that she didn't have much time left to live, the first thing that came to mind was how her family treated her throughout the years. If she told them she was dying, she thought they would give her more affection and attention, but she didn't want to face a reality where such love would only be given to her when she was about to die. She felt miserable and disgusted at the thought of trying to seek their attention with her illness, which was eating away at her life like sand escaping through the crevice of her fingers. That's why she ran all the way to the north. Her family couldn't reach her here, and Milan, she thought he'd ignore her because it seemed like he didn't like her. She tried to live as quietly as possible. She then remembers his words, I am the owner of this manor, Lady K. Since I accepted your offer, it's all right for you to act like a guest. While crying, she said, Why is he treating me so kindly? It's inevitable for people to have favorites within their family. That's why things are unfair sometimes, because everyone has their own set of priorities. But she was merely a guest to Milan, not even family, so how could he be so caring toward a stranger like her? While crying, she thinks, I'm going to die, and he'll keep on living. I should have made sure that he didn't develop any feelings for me, regardless of whether such feelings stem from sympathy or worry. If Milan ends up feeling guilty about my death then, she said to herself, I remember reading about a charm that can erase one's memory. She raises her hand as if to draw and said, if I had that book with me now, I could probably draw that charm. Her ability allows her to create any object she has seen, felt, and understood through her drawing. For example, if she draws the heart of a dead person, she could bring them back to life for a while. Of course, the power wears off as time passes, so a complete revival is impossible, but it's a powerful ability. If she had been born in a family that valued art, she imagines they would have supported her talent in every way they could. But what's the use in blaming her family now? Maybe she shouldn't stay here. Perhaps she should go to a monastery. She's about to run out of pills, and she doesn't think she'll be able to go back to the south in her current condition. She then wonders, what should I do? A voice came, do what? Milan came and said, you're up. Karina said, Your Grace. As he walks close to her, he asked, what type is it? Milan drags the chair to sit and asks, you seem to be suffering from heart disease. According to Marius, there are several kinds of heart disease. I was asking what kind yours was. Karina averts her gaze and said, I'm sorry. He said, don't apologize. Just answer my question. She replied, I know that I'm selfish and acted out of line. He said, "Lady Karina, I'm not trying to blame you." She said, "I'm sorry I barged in here. It was thoughtless of me to do so." Milan takes a sigh and said, I see. I'm getting nowhere. Karina asked, "Is it too late to pretend that this never happened?" With a serious face, Milan asked, "What are you talking about?" Karina doesn't speak. Then Milan said, "Karina Leopold." She replied, "Yes." He asked, "Is it that difficult to answer my question?" Clenching his fists, Karina said, "Why, Your Grace, may I please move to the annex so that I won't be a bother to you? You won't even know that I'm there. But if I still end up getting in your way somehow, I'll leave then." Milan asked, "Will you get better if you move to the annex? Just tell me, are your limbs going to be paralyzed or are you going to die? Are you really not going to cooperate? There aren't any doctors in the north that'll be able to treat you. It's also impossible to go outside because of the monsters." Karina shakes her head and said, "I don't need a doctor. It's impossible to cure me anyway." Milan told her, "Marius said that you'd be able to live if you stopped drawing." Karina replied, "Then I will have nothing left. I've been an artist my entire life. If I stop drawing, I'll have nothing else to hold on to." Feeling puzzled, Milan asked, "Then explain to me why you came here. Was it really because you needed time to yourself? And don't say that you can't tell me this either. Out of consideration for you, I've been holding back for quite some time now." Karina replied, "It might take a while for me to explain everything though. Would you be all right with that, Your Grace?" Milan replied with a smirk, "Of course, I'm all ears." Karina thought to herself, "I've never really opened up and told my story to anyone before. Where should I begin?" 10 minutes later, while feeling annoyed, Milan said, "Lady Karina." Karina said, "Actually, I found out that I had art disease a week before coming here. I wanted to organize my thoughts in a quiet place, and I didn't want to stay because I felt like I was being treated unfairly by my family." Milan asked, "How so?" She explained, "Well, for example, I had to spend my birthday all by myself because it was on the same day as my brother's graduation ceremony. I was forced to lend my precious wallet, which my mother had gifted me, to my younger brother, and I had to watch as my younger siblings were complimented on their smallest achievements, while mine were ignored no matter how hard I tried. I was afraid that I would have to endure being treated like that until I died, so I left." Then she asked, "I'm quite childish, don't you think?" Milan said with a straight face, "Why did your lonely birthday party interfere with your brother's graduation celebration in any way?" Karina replied, "No." He asked again, "Did you sprawl on the ground and throw a fit until you got your wallet back, or did you hit your little brother?" She replied, "And no." He again asked, "Then have you ever harassed your siblings just because you were jealous that they got more compliments than you did?" Surprised by his words, she said, "What are you talking about?" Being childish is being afraid of getting in trouble for spilling water on your father's papers and running away from home for a week. "I'm going on a journey." He asked, "What's so childish about what you did? You gave in to all of your siblings' needs." Karina admitted, "Yes, but yielding to the needs of one's family is a given." He interrupted, "Says who?" She was shocked and realized, since when did I start thinking that I should always put my siblings before myself? Milan then said, "Lady Karina." He scratches his head and again said, "Karina Leopold." While tears fell from her face, she replied, "Yes." Milan then walked to her and sat beside her on the bed, putting her head on his shoulder and said, "Don't hold back and just let it out." Karina raised her head and looked at Milan and said, "Oh, you great face." Milan thought to himself, "Isn't this how you're supposed to console someone when they're crying?" He said, "It's okay to cry. You'll feel better if you do. You can finish your story after you're all done." Karina nodded and then put her head against Milan's chest and started sniffling as Milan patted her. Milan thought, she's going to be even more stressed if she cries so quietly. After a few moments, Karina put her head beside Milan's shoulder and thought, "I don't remember the last time I cried in front of someone." Milan asked, "Are you all done?" Karina gasped and said, "Why, Your Grace?" She looked at his shirt, which was wet because of her crying, and said, "Oh no, your shirt is all wet. I'm so sorry." Milan smiled and said, "Then you should thank me for giving you a shoulder to cry on. Go on." Karina looked at him and said, "Thank you." Milan said, "Don't apologize or say that you're fine so easily. If you keep putting yourself down in front of other people, they'll start taking you for granted. From that moment onward, they'll come to value you less, making you feel more timid and unsure of yourself. But a thank you makes everyone feel good regardless of when it's said. Karina thought, I've never thought of it like that before. I always said I'm sorry or I'm fine just to avoid a conflict, but as time passed, people started taking me for granted, and the very words I uttered began suffocating me. Karina then smiled brightly and said, Thank you, Milan. If it's all right with you, please call me Karina from now on. Lena would be fine as well. Milan blushed and said, All right then. Why don't you get some rest now, lady? I mean, Karina. As Milan was leaving the room, the butler Fong came holding a letter and said, Your Grace, reply from Duke Carlos has arrived. Milan looked towards him and said, That was quick. Why are you making that face, Fong? He replied, It's nothing. I only thought that it was very like you to say such things. Milan asked, What do you mean? Hand me the letter. He opened the letter and started reading. Blah, blah, blah. Nothing important. The content of the letter were, You want me to use my miraculous powers to take a look at someone, you insolent fool. Why don't you learn some manners and ask more politely, fell Carlos. While enraged, Milan said, It looks like Fel may come much later than I expected. He crumpled the letter and said, Well, I guess I'll deal with this later. He then asked Fong, By the way, where do young noble ladies usually go for fun? A training hall, he replied. I'll look into it, Your Grace. Meanwhile, the doctor was riding the cart that was going towards the north. The cart driver said, You were very, very lucky, doctor. In early winter, you're rarely given permission to pass through the northern checkpoint because of preparations to subjugate monsters. At this rate, we'll probably arrive at Pastello Manor before it starts snowing. The doctor replied, I see. I'm glad I came at the right time. Thank you for helping me. The driver said, I should be the one thanking you. You saved my sick daughter. But may I ask, why are you sewing a map on that cloth? He replied, I'm looking for someone back at the Pastello Manor. Karina told him, I recently picked up a new hobby. Every day, I watch Milan train at dawn and draw him. Unlike me, he's a person who radiates light all on his own. I can't count how many times I was captivated by his movements. As he glowed under the soft moonlight, I felt compelled to sketch. Whenever I observed him, and when I came to my senses, I found that it was already morning. She glanced at her notebook and thought, I must remember to write what I want to do. As she held the notebook, she sighed and thought, I really don't know what I want to do. What should I write down? She said to herself, should I ask Milan to recommend some famous sightseeing spots in the north? She heard sightseeing spots, but there's nothing but monsters around here. She was surprised by the thought. Looking at him as he leaned on the door, she said, Milan, you should knock before you, he replied. For your information, I knocked more than 5 times. He walked to her, leaned on the table where her drawing was, and said, what were you so focused on? She replied, WL. She then suddenly realized, quickly gasping, and said, that's not holding her drawing. Milan asked, what's this? Karina tried to grab the drawing from his hand, but Milan swiftly turned towards the other side and said, I was wondering why you got up so late nowadays. It was because you were busy drawing this at dawn, huh? Feeling embarrassed, she said, I just thought that the sight of you swinging your sword under the twilight sky was magnificent. Milan blushed and then put down the drawing and asked, really? Karina replied, yes. Besides, if I capture a scene in a sketch like this, I'll be able to remember it even after time passes. She then asked, anyway, what brings you here? He replied, I was going to go out on a patrol soon, and I was wondering if you'd like to accompany me. I figured you'd be tired of having to stay indoors all day. She excitedly replied, that sounds wonderful. After some time, after getting prepared to leave, Karina said, Milan. Milan looked towards Karina as she was dressed in fancy clothes. Karina was looking lovely in that dress. Milan also blushed. He cleared his throat and told her, we're going to take the carriage, then walk to our final destination. Will that be all right with you? Karina replied, yes, it's fine. Milan then held her hand and said, then shall we? The maids bowed their heads and said, please have a safe journey, Your Grace. Sitting in the carriage, Milan thought, looking at her like this makes me realize that she really is a noble lady. He asked, did you learn your etiquette from your parents? She replied, no, I learned it from a viscountess, while the rest of my siblings learned from my parents. He asked, and why was that? She answered, my sister was quite sick then, so I guess they didn't have the time to give me lessons. He concluded, I'd better not probe any further. He then asked, what's that in your bag? She told him, it's a notebook that I was going to use to write down the things I want to do, but I'm having some trouble getting started. Milan said, your goals don't have to be grand. Don't think too much. Just write down whatever comes to your mind. Who says you can only write down what's possible? This may be nosy of me, but I think you often overthink things. Take what you just said. For example, you have every right to be angry or upset about having been taught etiquette differently from your siblings. After the carriage stopped, Milan extended his hand towards Karina and said, Karina, the world is big. Don't let the memories of an unfortunate past discourage you. As Karina grabbed Milan's hand, he said, it seems as though Count and Countess Leopold kept a great tree in a small pot for too long. The tree had no choice but to keep growing its roots in that tiny pot, so even if that tree finally decided to jump out of that suffocating pot, that wouldn't be your fault. After that, as she got off the carriage, she smiled. Milan asked, why are you laughing while smiling? She replied, well, I just pictured a tree with legs. Milan said, I was being serious. She whispered, thank you, Milan. He asked, what did you say? She replied, nothing. The market was bustling with people, one of the vendors calling, come in and take a look around. Karina looked at the decorated houses and the busy stalls, feeling the festival atmosphere. She asked Milan, is there enough to eat in the north during winter? He replied, yes, you can eat all the meat you want in this season. He glanced at Karina as she mumbled, thinking she was horrible at hiding her thoughts. Karina murmured, all the meat you want. Is it to stack up on protein to fight monsters? She asked, what kind of meat do you eat? He replied, the meat of demonic monsters. Surprised by his answer, she asked, excuse me? Milan explained, the north closes its gates in preparation for fighting monsters, so where else would we get our food from? We kill monsters that come down to the village in search of food and feast on their meat. But meat isn't the only thing that's useful about these beasts. Their fur and bones are used to make clothes and ornaments. Karina was in awe, imagining all the things she could make. She looked up at Milan and asked, is it that fascinating? She replied, yes, it looks so real. It's like it's really alive. He asked, is there anything you'd like to have? As he spoke, a passerby went past and Milan pulled Karina close to him. The passerby said, sorry, we're passing through. Milan was holding her tightly and both of their hearts raced. Karina said, and Milan? As she spoke, they heard a bell ringing, ding dong, ding dong. Karina asked, Milan? He replied, it seems like a monster has appeared nearby. I'll be right back. After a few moments, one of the soldiers called, have reinforcements arrived? A soldier looked toward Milan and said while saluting, Your Grace. Milan asked, what's the situation? The soldier replied, the advanced party is out fighting the creatures. The advanced party was fighting the monsters, AF. Everyone, hold your defenses, don't let them advance any further. After that, Milan said, wait here, Lady Karina. He jumped from the second floor to the ground, saying, I'll leave her in your hands. Shocked by his action, Karina shouted, Milan. The soldier beside her said, yes, Your Grace. He said, my lady, if you'd come this way. Karina asked, but he just jumped off from here? The soldier explained, he'll be fine. He won't get hurt from something like this. Look, they looked toward Milan and the soldiers fighting the monsters. He explained, as Milan was fighting, those monsters are called heris. They've been sighted often these days, and they're so strong that it's extremely difficult to even scratch their skin. I can't imagine fighting one alone. In order to kill Aura, we need to find its weakness, but it hasn't been easy. So even His Grace has no choice but to settle with chasing them away. Looking at him fighting, Karina thought, I wish I could help Milan in any way I can. Suddenly, she had an idea. She pulled out her sketchbook and started drawing, thinking maybe this will help. After the fight was over, the soldiers were saying to each other, "Ah, it's over." The soldier beside Karina said, "My lady, please." As he was talking, he looked toward Karina, but she wasn't there. Surprised by her disappearance, he called, "And my lady?" Karina was heading toward where Milan was. After reaching there, Milan asked the soldiers, "Were there any casualties?" A soldier reported some sustained light injuries, but thankfully no one was severely wounded. Milan looked toward Karina, who was breathing heavily from running down there, and said, "Karina, I would have gone to get you if you had just stayed up there." Karina wiped the bloodstains from his face, and he looked a little surprised. After that, Milan grabbed her hand and said, "I'm fine now, that's..." He stopped in the middle, realizing, "Karina, why is your hand so cold? Didn't anyone give you a blanket to keep yourself warm?" The soldiers that were with Karina trembled after hearing that. Karina replied, "I'm fine, it wasn't that chilly." Milan rummaged through his robe and pulled out a pendant, wrapping it around her neck. He said, "Here, it's a gift." The soldiers present were shocked and said, No way." Hearing that, Milan said to them, "All of you who shouted just now, run 100 laps around the training grounds." Karina asked, "Is this a rock?" Milan replied, "No, it isn't." Karina felt a warm sensation and said, "It's warm." Milan explained, "This is something called a heron. It's a rare item that comes out of a slain monster." Karina asked, "Why are you giving this to me?" He said, "Where should I start? It's a northern tradition. We believe that if a sick person carries a heron, it will help them get better." He smiled and said, "I hope you recover soon." Karina chuckled and said, "Thank you for the lovely gift." Milan then asked, "Should we head back now? We can enjoy the rest of the festival tomorrow." She replied, "All right." As they were walking, Karina looked behind and saw the doctor. He said, "You look more lively than when I last saw you. It's been quite a while, Miss Karina." She called Dr. Winston and asked, "How did you find me?" He replied, "Oh, there's a way. Anyway, may I ask who this is?" Milan introduced himself. "I'm Duke Milan Pastello." The doctor replied, "Greetings, Your Grace. I'm Winston." The doctor thought to himself, "I thought his name sounded familiar, so she's a lady of House Leopold, the one said to have gotten engaged to Duke Pastello." Milan suggested, "Why don't we continue our conversation back at the manor? Let's get on the carriage first." At the Leopold household, Fel went to the Leopold manor. Count Leopold greeted him, saying, "Thank you for coming such a long way, Duke Carlos." He replied, "Not at all. Thank you for letting me." And despite the short notice, head of House Carlos, Duke Fio Carlos, he said, "Are all the pictures I asked for ready?" The count replied, "Yes, come right this way. But may I ask why you're interested in them?" Duke Fel said, well, he remembers a scene from before. As he was eating, the window broke and something snatched what he was about to eat from his spoon. He said, "Oh, you, what in the world?" "A hawk." The hawk came holding the letter that Milan sent. Fel said, "It's all right, it's for me. Will you give me the message it's holding?" The maid said, "Here you are, Your Grace." Fel said, "I haven't heard from Milan in a while. I wonder why he suddenly contacted me." The letter read, "This is a drawing by Lady Karina of the Leopold family. I believe she has our disease. However, she won't tell me what kind of art disease she is suffering from. Why don't you put your powers to good use and look into it, and make sure to find a cure as well? P.S. Tell Count Cassius Leopold that his daughter is with me, Milan Pastello." Fel wondered, art disease. This is back at the present. The count said, "To be honest, I was surprised when you asked me to show you my daughter's drawings." He asked the servant, "Did you bring all of them?" The servant replied, "Yes, Your Grace." He flipped through the drawings and put them down on the table. He said, "Your Grace is a master of arts, so I'm not sure whether you'll find these meager sketches to be pleasing." Fel took a sip and said, "I think that you should study art more. Count Leopold, even a passing layman, would laugh at your words." A little shocked by his remark, the count asked, "What do you mean?" While shaking, he said, "I don't know why you suddenly came here demanding to see Karina's drawings, but I must say that I'm quite offended by what you just said." Fel thought to himself, "Goodness, He took the words right out of my mouth. I'm offended that he would store such wonderful artwork like that. He continued, I've supported numerous artists for years, so I know for a fact that those with art disease rarely get along well with their family. It was common to see them hide their condition. In Lady Karina's case, it seems like her relationship with her family was so bad that she hid the fact that she did art. Fell sarcastically said, It sounds like you're not even aware that your daughter is suffering from art disease. Shocked by this revelation, the Count said, That can't be. She doesn't even have that sort of talent. You must be mistaken. And if she was really sick, then how could she have run away? Fell asked, She ran away? The Count replied, Yes, unfortunately, and we haven't been able to track her down. Fell said, I guess going to one's fiancé is considered running away from home. Here, the very person who sent me here was Duke Pastello. The Count asked, while in shock, Karina's in the north? Duke Fell said, You don't even know where she is, and yet you claim that she's in good health. It seems like either you or my friend has lied to me. The Count said, How dare you make such rude speculations? He stood up and said, If you're done looking at the drawings, please leave. Duke Fell smiled and said, I guess I will. I don't have anything more to find out here anyway. He stood up and said, Please excuse me. The Count said, I'd like to thank you for telling me my daughter's whereabouts. I'll make sure to pay you back in some way later. The Duke said, Now that's fascinating. The Count asked, Fascinating, Your Grace? Do you find this situation amusing? The Duke replied, Count Leopold, you did not believe me when I said your daughter has art disease, and yet you believed me when I said she's in the north. The Count said, What are you? Duke Fell said, as he was about to leave, It's interesting how you only hear the things that you want to hear. If someone told me that my child was suffering from an illness, the first thing I'd ask is if the child was all right and how old they were. Well, goodbye then. He closed the door and, standing outside, he thought, the subjects of the sketches are missing and a good amount of the drawings are mostly empty. He speculated, this seems like the miracle of creation. He said to himself, it looks like I may be too late. After Duke Farrell left, the Count was organizing his thoughts while sitting there when suddenly someone knocked on the door. He said, Come in. Enric and Nocturne came in. Enric said, Father, I came back because work ended early today. Nocturne here says that he has something to report to you, so we came in together. The Count looked toward them and said, I see. How's Abilia? Nocturne replied, She's not very energetic, but she's doing quite well. I think it'd be all right for her to attend tea parties or banquets as long as she doesn't overdo it. Her father said, What a relief. Please look after her. I imagine she must be quite lonely. He asked, What about Dahlia? Nocturne replied, Her ladyship wore herself out because she hasn't been sleeping well these past few days. She'll recover once she gets plenty of rest and takes her medicine. His father said, I see. Then Nocturne bowed his head and said, Then I'll take my leave now. At the door, before leaving, Nocturne looked back and thought, should I tell him about Lady Karina's art disease? But if Leah finds out about this, I'd bet or not. Dr. Winston's already gone to the north, so I'm sure he'll return with an answer. After Nocturne left, his father said, just moments ago, Duke Carlos paid a visit. Did you run into him on your way here? While remembering, Enric said, I thought I saw an unfamiliar carriage. What brought him all the way here? His father said, He said that Karina is at Pastello Manor. Getting shocked after hearing that, Enric asked, What? Then we must go right this instant. The Count said, Lower your voice. He took a pill while drinking water and said, The gates of the northern checkpoint must be closed by now, so it would be impossible to get across. He put down the glass and curiously asked Enric, When you attended Karina's engagement ceremony in my place, what was your impression of His Grace? Enric told him, Duke Pastello was just as the rumors described him. He was courteous and had an impeccable character, and it seemed like he took good care of Karina throughout the ceremony. Though I'm not absolutely certain, it seemed like Karina liked him as well. His father thought to himself, is this why Karina went to Duke Pastello? Because she was touched by his kindness. Honestly, he sighed and said, they're not even married yet. How improper. And she didn't even send a single letter to her own parents. What an unfilial daughter. Enric suggested, Why don't you have a conversation with her after she returns? There could have been a misunderstanding between us. His father replied, but we must meet her first if we want to do that. Just where did everything go wrong? Back at Zenter, sitting inside the carriage, Karina asked, "How did you find me?" The doctor replied, "I got help from the power of a miracle." Surprised by his words, Karina asked, a miracle?" Showing the piece of cloth, the doctor said, "Believe it or not, I have a gift for embroidery." Karina said, "Goodness." Milan asked, what does that have to do with it?" The doctor put the cloth back in his bag and said, "Well, I can find whatever I want." For example, he demonstrates, let's say I want to find my glasses. I first picture the item in my mind, then when I burn my needlework, which has been embroidered with any kind of pattern, I can find out where those glasses are. When I was a sprightly young man, I used this talent to help my town's guards catch criminals. Both Milan and Karina clapped. Then Milan asked, "I noticed that you used the past tense. Then are you?" The doctor glanced toward Karina and said, "Yes, that's right. I'm suffering from art disease as well, and unfortunately, I'm slowly losing my sight. If a deity truly exists, I thought that they are quite cruel after all. What sort of god would take away an embroiderer's sight?" Karina asked, then are you unable to see right now?" The doctor laughed and said, no. To be exact, I almost lost my sight. I can still see to some extent. I got here perfectly fine, didn't I? Milan asked, "Then has your art disease been cured?" The doctor shook his head in defeat and said, "To be honest, there's no cure for it." Milan asked, "There's no cure, but you can still see?" The doctor said, "That's because I gave up on embroidery. It was the fastest and simplest solution." Milan asked, "Is that the only way?" The doctor explained, "Yes. To begin with, art disease isn't something that everyone suffers from. Only 1% of artists who can perform miracles have it. Losing one's senses, such as sight, isn't a rare symptom of art disease. The rarest is losing one's life in exchange for a miracle." Karina was stunned hearing that. He added, "Of course, such cases only happen once every 50 or 60 years. Milan said, "In that case, I guess it's extremely rare." The doctor then said, "If you don't have any more questions, may I ask you a few things, Lady Karina?" Karina flinched and then said, "Yes. Would it be all right to discuss it in my room?" The doctor replied, "I'm fine with that as well." Milan looked at her, surprised by her reaction and her face. After the carriage stopped, Karina stood up and said, "Milan, I had a wonderful time today." After getting off the carriage, she looked back and said while smiling, "If it's all right with you, please invite me out next time as well." Karina went inside the manor and the doctor followed her. As they were walking, the doctor asked, "Does His Grace not know yet?" Karina stopped and sadly said, "He doesn't. I imagine it wouldn't be very pleasant for him to find out he's living with someone who's about to die soon." She added, "I was planning on leaving this place quietly because I didn't want to hurt Milan." Then she turned toward the doctor and said, "But his words of consolation felt so warm that it made me want to stay here a little longer. I'm quite selfish, aren't I?" Then they sat down to have tea. Karina said, "I'm sorry I hid my identity when I first came to you." "Don't worry about it," Dr. Winston replied. "A patient's social position doesn't matter at all. But more importantly, doesn't the Leopold family have a personal doctor?" She explained while fidgeting nervously, "I didn't feel like I could trust him, so I went in search of someone else." "And why was that?" he asked gently. She replied, "It's a long story." The doctor pressed, "Please go on. Anxiety can be the root of numerous illnesses." "What happened?" Karina hesitated before beginning. "Everyone in my family, but myself was at the center of my world. I had to be a supportive younger sister cheering on my older brother who was the successor of the family, and I had to be a kind older sister who gladly made sacrifices for my younger siblings. I didn't have the luxury of demanding things for myself." She paused, memories flashing vividly in her mind. Even on the day I had been upset about having my wallet taken away by my younger brother, she asked her mother, "Can I sleep with you tonight?" But she refused, saying she was too tired from dealing with Felden. She scolded her for making him cry, telling her she should have just given him the wallet. In frustration, Karina blurted out that I wished I didn't have any siblings. That earned her a slap and harsh words about how ungrateful she was. Her mother said, "How could you say something so horrendous and childish? You should be thankful that you're not sick like Leah, and you should be ashamed of yourself for not being kinder to Feldon. I couldn't ask for anything more if Leah was half as healthy as you." She continued, "Whenever I said that I didn't feel well, I was accused of lying. My happiness was always compared to that of those less fortunate than me, and my parents once said they'd send me to the slums if I complained again." After hearing that, the doctor said, "It must have been exhausting to live with people who hurt you again and again. You did a good job enduring all that pain until now." Karina sniffled as she heard that. He said, "Compared to your story, mine could seem trivial, but I had my share of pain when I was younger." He began reminiscing. "I loved doing embroidery ever since I was a boy, but people looked down on me and said that embroidery wasn't for boys. My parents wanted me to become a knight and earn a title, but I hated even the idea of it, so I stubbornly continued stitching. Whenever I picked up a needle, all of my worries would evaporate. I suppose you felt that way too." Karina nodded as he said that. He continued, "Then one day I lost something I cared for greatly, but gave up trying to find it. I embroidered that object and set it on fire, just like how people burn the belongings of the deceased after their funeral, and as I showed you before, a miracle happened afterward. It was as if I had become a hero. I helped track down criminals and found lost pets or missing children. After years of being ignored, that was the first time I felt like I had accomplished something great. There weren't any words to describe how happy I was. And when 20 years passed, I found that my sight was deteriorating. I couldn't embroider as well as I used to. Then I was diagnosed with art disease. I was told that I would become blind if I continued to sew. I despaired. I even thought of ending my life, so I left everything behind to do just that. But on my journey, I found a new dream. I wanted to help the sick and give hope to those suffering from art disease. That's why I came to find you." Hearing that, Karina smiled and said, "I see." He added, "Also, I want to tell you that you did the right thing by distancing yourself from your family. Some say that confronting your problems is the shortcut to healing your pain, but I think that spending some time away from it is also a way to heal. Since you've escaped your family, try to make new relationships and wonderful memories." Karina concluded, "I thought I was being a coward by leaving without saying anything." As she was busy thinking, the doctor said, "You didn't explain the part about your family doctor." Karina said, It's quite an embarrassing story." Then she began recalling, "I think I was about 17 when our family doctor came to Leopold Manor. It was just an ordinary day. I was taking a walk in the garden. Suddenly Nocturne came and said, excuse me, I didn't know there was anyone here." Karina asked, "Who are you?" Nocturne introduced himself. "I'm the new doctor for House Leopold. My name is Nocturne. Pleased to meet you, my lady." Karina said wistfully, "That was how I met my first love. When I first met Nocturne, it felt as if spring had finally arrived. He was a very friendly person and a great conversationalist. I had never felt such warmth from someone before," Karina thought. She felt like she wanted to know him more. She went to him and said, Nocturne?" He stood up and asked, "Lady Karina, how may I help you?" She said, "I was just curious about what you were up to." Nocturne said, while smiling, "The flowers in the garden were in full bloom, and I wanted to pick one to show someone." Karina thought, perhaps he was going to give it to me. Her heart raced at the thought. I had never received flowers from anyone before, so I didn't know how I should react. Nocturne then turned and said, Abilia, look at this flower. Isn't it pretty?" Karina realized, but I was mistaken. Later, in the study, Karina was browsing through books. Abilia whined, "Karina, I want to go outside and play." Karina reminded her gently, "Remember what Nocturne said. You need to rest today." Abilia walked close to Karina, saying, "But he always says I shouldn't go outside if I feel even a little unwell. Even if I act like I'm fine, I can't fool him." "That's because he's always looking your way," Karina thought, feeling a pang of upset. Nocturne treated Abilia especially well. He always seemed so protective of her, and I couldn't help but feel overshadowed. Meanwhile, Abilia was saying, "He always suspects me of lying and tells me not to do this or that," she muttered, frustration spilling out. Karina was putting the book back and thought, I'm such a horrible sister. I can't believe that I feel jealous of Abilia. Then Abilia came from the opposite side of the bookshelf and pouted. Suddenly, the bookshelf tilted and fell. There was a loud crash. Nocturne burst in, opening the door. Abilia, he saw Karina underneath the bookshelf while the other bookshelf was holding it from falling on Karina. Abilia was standing beside the bookshelf. Nocturne rushed to Abilia, who was weeping and saying, Nocturne, I didn't do it on purpose. Nocturne rushed over, his concern entirely focused on Abilia. Are you hurt anywhere? He asked. I'm fine, she replied weakly. Karina, who was still underneath, felt pain. Ouch! She was about to speak, but got interrupted by Nocturne's yelling. What in the world do you think you're doing? He yelled, his anger directed at Karina. Karina again tried to speak, but the shelf suddenly, Nocturne didn't stop. Thank heavens it fell to your side. What would you have done if it had collapsed on Leah? What were you thinking, bringing her to such a dangerous place? Are you trying to kill her or something? Karina's ankle was hurting and swollen. She didn't complain about it. Do you like Abilia? She asked hesitantly. What? No, but I'll do anything to keep her safe. I can't afford to lose someone again, he said firmly. And just like that, he picked up Abilia and left the library without a second glance at Karina. Karina thought, I was so shocked and hurt from having all those books fall on me, so I sat there for a while trying to calm myself down, but he didn't come back to check on me. After hearing that, Dr. Winston thought, Nocturne, this is exactly what I feared he would do. I told him so many times that he should be careful not to project his dead sister onto a patient, and that he should treat all his patients equally. Karina continued, That's when I realized Nocturne, I mean the family doctor, didn't care about me. He was just like my parents. Abilia was his priority, not me. She took a sigh and said, even if I was given a checkup and he found out I had heart disease, I don't think he would have told me out of fear that the news would shock Abilia. Milan was listening to all of this, standing outside the door a while ago. Milan was walking in the hallway thinking, it seemed like Karina was about to say something to me. I wish she would just tell me everything honestly. He suddenly heard her say, I wish I didn't have any siblings, and that was the first time that my mother ever hit me. Looking at the door, Milan thought, I don't like to eavesdrop, but no, after listening to that, he was enraged. He said inwardly, this is outrageous. Milan thinks, now I understand why she smiled like that and why she was so excited about looking around the market. It also explains why she acted so frustratingly at times. She had no choice but to act that way because of the walls surrounding her life. He remembered her saying, if it's all right with you, please invite me out next time as well. He then said aloud, all right, I can do that. Later at night, Karina was drawing the monster Milan had slain. After sketching its portrait, she looked at it and said, all I have to do is color this. After a few moments, she realized, no, this isn't enough. She thought, I feel a bit guilty about trying to use one of my creations, but I want to help Milan in any way I can. He was one of the few people who were genuinely worried about me. I don't want him to get hurt, she said aloud. I'm about to die anyway. This won't make much of a difference. She then pulled out her supplies and said, my art supplies are running low. Should I ask Milan to get me some more? She quickly rejected that thought. No, I can't ask him to help me, not when he's already helped me so much. She shook her head while thinking. She glanced, and her gaze fell on Heron. She remembered, it's a Nocturne tradition. We believe that if a sick person carries a heron, it will help them get better. She thought, maybe that's why I feel a bit better today. It's almost like magic. Later, while in the carriage, Karina said, I could have gone alone. Milan replied, we couldn't look around yesterday because those herders suddenly appeared, and we weren't able to buy you clothes for the winter. Then he asked, did you sleep in today? Karina was surprised. Huh? Milan said, I didn't feel you watching me this morning. Upon hearing that, Karina blushed while fidgeting and said, I slept late last night because I was drawing. He replied, really? Do you need any more drawing supplies? Karina, panicking, said, no, I have my pencils. Hearing that, Milan thought, they do say that only a bad workman blames his tools. But he then said, in the north, it could be a bit difficult to find specialized, high-quality tools that you're used to using, but if we look carefully, I'm sure we'll be able to find something to your liking." Karina beamed with happiness. "I'm fine with anything," she chuckled, while thinking, I didn't get to use such tools back at home anyway. I was scared that father might find out if I ever bought high-quality materials myself. Milan asked, "Do you feel better today? If not, make sure to tell me right away." She asked, "What will happen if I do?" Milan groaned, "We'll head back immediately." "Of course, isn't that obvious?" Karina averted her gaze, thinking, "Haha, it's a good thing I got enough sleep last night." Then Milan said, "Anyway, I'd say you're quite lucky." Dr. Winston came just in time for the winter. "I think my friend will stop by soon as well." Karina asked, "Your friend?" They started walking towards the shop. Milan said, "He's the head of the Carlos family. He's quite interested in finding new talents. I sent him your drawing a few days ago." Karina jolted. "What? You sent that?" He replied, "Since he knows a lot about art disease, I thought he could be of help to you." They were inside a shop where Milan said to a servant, "We're here to buy winter clothes." The servant bowed and said, "Yes, Your Grace." Karina said to him, "How could you just send that sketch to Duke Carlos?" He asked, "Is there a problem?" Saying that, they started following the servant. Karina said, "It's embarrassing. The drawing isn't that good." And he asked, "What's embarrassing about your work?" She replied, "I'm not trying to be humble. I'm just flustered and nervous, like when someone reads your diary." He said, "A diary, huh? I'm sorry, I didn't think of it that way." Suddenly, the shop owner came and greeted them. "Welcome, Your Grace. We've been expecting you." Milan replied, "Yes, it's been a while." "Karina, this is Arya, the owner of Chiffon Boutique." Karina said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Arya." "I'm Karina Leopold." The shop owner said, "Oh, please feel free to just call me Arya, my lady." Milan said, "I'd like to see a couple of winter dresses, clothes for daily wear, as well as some comfortable work clothes." Karina was surprised at the number. Milan asked, "Don't you need more comfortable clothes?" Karina got flustered, "I don't need work clothes." Arya smiled and asked, "What kind of work clothes do you have in mind?" Milan replied, "She needs them for when she draws. Just bring out all of the expensive ones." Karina stopped him. "Milan, really, you don't have to." He glanced at her hand, which was tugging at her robe. He beamed with joy. "Choose as many as you like then." The shop owner said, "Why don't you look over the dress samples first? Then we'll take your measurements and make the clothes accordingly." Karina said, "All right, but I don't need that many. Just a couple would do." As the servant was taking measurements, Karina was thinking, I had no idea this was going to happen. I won't be able to wear them for very long anyway. She looked towards Milan. He was staring at her. She quickly turned her head and thought, what should I do? Later, Karina slumped in her seat, completely exhausted. Just then, the boutique owner approached her and said, "Lady Karina, now you just need to take your pick from this selection of dresses." Karina thought to herself that this wasn't her first time visiting a boutique, but she had never been to one where she was asked so many detailed questions before. "Karina, are you all right?" Milan's voice broke through her thoughts. She looked up and noticed his hand resting gently on her head. His touch felt cool and refreshing, almost calming. Without thinking, she rubbed her head against his hand. Sorry," she gasped. "It felt so cool that I couldn't help it." "Do you have a fever?" Milan asked, concern clouding his expression. "If you're not feeling well, we should head back to the manor." Karina stammered, "No, I don't think so. I'm just a bit exhausted." Inwardly, Karina groaned. She couldn't believe what she had just done. I must have been out of my mind. I can't believe I rubbed my face against his hand like that. Looking at her flustered reaction, Milan thought that she was terrible at hiding her thoughts. "Well, do you see any clothes you like?" Milan asked, changing the subject. Karina admitted, "They're all very beautiful." "Oh, really? You like them all?" Milan cut her off as he stood up. Realizing what he was about to do, she tried to stop him. "Huh?" "Milan," she stuttered, but his expression had already turned serious. Later, as they walked through the market, Milan asked, "Why are you so sullen?" "I said I was fine with buying you that many clothes." "And I told you I don't need that many," Karina replied, her face flushing. I've never heard anyone say they wanted to buy everything off the rack, Milan said. Really, think of this as my apology for showing my friend your drawing without asking you, Karina sighed. Honestly, I can't stay angry at him, but I won't be able to wear them all anyway. If you keep the clothes, I'm sure you'll end up wearing them someday, Milan said with a kind smile. Karina thought that his gestures were making her hesitant to leave. How should I repay him? She wondered. Are you sure you're fine? Milan pressed, staring at her. Of course, she replied quickly. He then said, the store Arya mentioned isn't far from here. Let's stop by there before heading back to the manor. As Karina didn't reply, he asked again, Karina, are you listening? Karina grabbed his hand and squeezed it. Noticing this, he grinned and said, let's go. We don't want to be too late getting back. After reaching the shop, Karina was amazed. This place is filled with a sharp smell of paint. She let go of Milan's hand as soon as they walked in. The storekeeper greeted them with a skeptical look. I don't see folks like you often in a store like mine. What brings you here? We're here to buy painting supplies, Karina replied happily. You've come to the wrong place. We don't have any of the high-end stuff you're probably looking for, the shopkeeper said gruffly. Are you out of business? Milan grumbled. Karina quickly stopped him. I'm not looking for anything fancy. All I want are some paints and flat brushes. The shopkeeper suddenly noticed something. He leaned toward Karina and said, May I examine your hands? What are you? Milan began, but Karina stopped him. It's all right, Milan, she reassured him. After a moment, the shopkeeper released her hands and said, You're an artist. Forgive me. I thought you were just a wealthy lady dabbling in art for fun. Everything's for sale. Take a look around. Thank you, Karina said. The shopkeeper then turned to Milan and said, I'm sorry for grabbing your lover's hand earlier. I can tell whether someone is an artist by looking at their hands. We're not a couple, Milan interjected. I see, the shopkeeper said. It seems like she's been drawing for quite some time. Does she have an atelier? She hasn't been here that long, Milan replied, but I was about to make one. Bring whatever's needed for an atelier. I'll pay for it all. All right. We have all of the most basic equipment here, the shopkeeper replied. I'll send someone to bring everything to you, Milan said. He then asked, Were you an artist as well? How can you tell just by looking at someone's hands? I was, the shopkeeper admitted, before I lost my arm to a disease. Are you referring to art disease? Milan asked. You know about it. That's right, the shopkeeper said, looking at his hand reminiscently. One day my fingers started going numb. Then they hardened, and I couldn't move them freely anymore. I tried drawing with my left hand, but the same thing happened. After moving to the north, though, the pain and fever got a lot better. Pain and fever, Milan murmured, about to say something more, but he was interrupted by Karina. I'm all done, she was holding the supplies. Milan, is that all? Yes, this will be more than enough, Karina replied. In her mind, she thought, I can't choose more when he's already spent a fortune on those dresses for me. Mister, include this with everything else that will be delivered, Milan said firmly. Everything else? Karina asked, confused. You don't have a proper workshop at the manor, right? Milan declared. So I'm going to make you an atelier. Milan, you really don't have to, Karina began, but suddenly she felt a throbbing pain in her heart, and her vision began to fade as she was about to fall. Milan shouted, calling out to her. After some time, Karina gasped, clutching her chest. It's so hot. I feel like my heart is on fire. Her heartbeat was erratic, and each breath felt suffocating. It's so suffocating. I can't breathe, she thought as panic set in. When she opened her eyes, she saw Milan's hand resting on her head. Karina, he asked, his voice filled with concern. Are you awake? Yes, she replied weakly. I feel much better. I just had trouble breathing back there, Milan said. According to Dr. Winston, it was due to accumulated fatigue. Karina averted her gaze and said, perhaps it's because I didn't get much sleep. I'll make sure to go to bed early from now on. Milan's eyes narrowed slightly. Karina, are you being honest with me? She blinked, startled. When you lie, you avert your eyes and smile, just like you did a moment ago, he said. Karina's face flushed. How did he figure that out? Covering her face with her hands, she muttered, Can't you pretend you didn't notice? No, Milan replied firmly. Who knows when you'll collapse again? After a brief pause, Karina said softly, Milan. What is it? He asked. Karina hesitated before speaking. You shouldn't be so kind to me. It'll only make things harder when we say goodbye, so let's refrain from being so nice to each other. 2 guards stood on duty at the gate. One of them yawned loudly. I won't be surprised if a fly flies into your mouth, the other guard said. Well, I'm bored out of my mind, the first replied. I wanted to go slay demonic monsters too. It's your fault, the other guard said. You always lose bets. That's true, he replied, but then noticed a carriage approaching. Pulling out a telescope, he took a closer look. Open the gates and let him in, he said. Right away, the other guard replied, then asked, but who is it? Can't you tell? It's Duke Fio Carlos, came the answer. The other guard looked shocked. Really? The one infamous for being bad-tempered. Yes, the first replied. But that's to be expected of his Grace's friend. Both of them laughed. Back in Karina's room, she struggled to stay still. Haha, I finally managed to get out of bed, she murmured. She remembered Milan's strict words. No, you must rest. He hadn't let her move around for 3 whole days. Though she was grateful for his concern, Karina felt restless. Looking at the canvas of the monster she had drawn, she picked up her paints and brush. I want to help Milan, she thought, her determination shining in her eyes. After some effort, she sighed in relief. I finally finished it. I hope that this will. Her words were cut short as the ground began to tremble violently. Suddenly, a foot emerged from the painting she had drawn. Karina stared in shock. Wait, this is everyone in the manor heard the loud noise. Milan burst into the room. Karina, are you all right? The entire manor is shaking. He stopped when he saw her holding back a monster. A monster, Karina cried. Milan immediately prepared to strike. Karina, get out of the way, he yelled. But Karina rushed toward him and shouted, Milan, wait. He froze, surprised. Karina, she looked at him and said, this one is good. Her eyes glowed with an unearthly hue. Karina, the color of your eyes has. Milan hesitated, concern etched on his face. Stepping back, Karina asked, I'm sorry. It's disturbing, isn't it? No, Milan said softly. I think it suits you. But more importantly, did you just create a miracle? Karina flinched at his words. Milan groaned. As far as I know, art disease gets worse the more you perform miracles. Or am I wrong? He began reaching for his sword. No, you can't, Karina exclaimed, hugging the monster. Then let's keep it outside for now, Milan suggested. Is it dangerous? He asked. No, not at all, Karina assured him. At least, I don't think so. Milan looked around the room. All right. The mess left in the aftermath was overwhelming. I'm so sorry, Karina said. I had no idea it would be so big. I promised to pay for all the damages. There's no need, Milan replied calmly. You didn't do it on purpose. But she began, only for Milan to stop her. Examining her closely, he said, Are you in any pain? No fever or dizziness. We'll talk more after we get her out of here. Okay, Karina replied. She turned toward the monster and said, Then, Hera, should we head out? The monster nodded and began walking. With every step, it stomped and cracked everything in its path. Karina turned back to Milan once more. I promised to pay for everything. I said it's fine, he replied.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope this romantic journey made your heart flutter just like mine. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss another love-filled episode. And don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I love reading what you think about the story. Your support means the world. See you in the next romantic adventure.